A month prior, Himuro Kaiuji was engrossed in a book when he suddenly heard a knock at the door. A package had arrived for his father, Keiji Himuro. However, upon opening the door, he unexpectedly found himself in another world. Though initially shocked, he assumed he had been chosen as a hero. He searched for the package meant for his father, but instead discovered an odd-looking bird. The bird lunged at Himuro Kaiuji but failed to hit him. He was in disbelief that the bird was trying to kill him. It then occurred to him that, in situations like this, he might possess some kind of special ability. He attempted to open his skills and status window, but nothing happened until the bird crashed into him. Ultimately, he realized he was weak and barely managed to reach the nearest city. He figured that joining the guild would allow him to see his stats. Upon arrival, a receptionist greeted him and informed him that checking his stats required 1,000 gold. Unfortunately, he was broke and couldn't afford it, but he still managed to register with the guild. His next concern was finding food. Since he looked pitiful, he thought he might receive a free meal as a special perk in his Isekai journey. However, that wasn't the case, and he eventually ended up in an alleyway, on the verge of starvation. At that moment, he saw a restaurant worker discarding some leftover food. Though tempted, he hesitated to resort to scavenging through the trash. In the end, his hunger got the better of him, and he ate the discarded food. He abandoned his pride, but vowed not to make dumpster diving a habit. He assumed his current circumstances couldn't be worse than his previous life. Suddenly, he bit into something hard and realized it was a seed. That was when he had the idea that he could grow his own food rather than hunt monsters for money to buy it. Thinking this lifestyle would suit him better, he headed to a monster-free plain outside town, where he discovered an abandoned house. With a newfound sense of hope in this world, he decided to start farming. The following morning, he was astonished to see that the seeds had already sprouted. He went to the town's fountain to collect water. Observing the rapid plant growth, he believed he could become self-sufficient within a week. However, he was reprimanded for using the town's fountain water. He returned to his field and watered the plants. By the next morning, the plants had already grown significantly. Himuro Kaiuji continued his days sneaking water from the fountain, scavenging for food, and tending to his crops. Soon, he was eager to check on his plants, but was nearly killed by them. That was when he realized that the crops he had been growing were actually monsters. One of the plants devoured him, but he was freed when the creatures were slashed apart. Devastated, he wept over the destruction of his crops, only for a girl to call him a fool. She scolded Himuro Kaiuji for raising a carnivorous plant. She grabbed him by the collar, and Himuro Kaiuji began to protest. Noticing that the heroine was both fierce and adorable, he found himself unable to look away, which flustered the girl. She then let go of Himuro Kaiuji and revealed that her brother, a town guard, had asked her to deal with the person stealing water from the fountain. She warned him that cultivating monsters within the town was dangerous. Himuro Kaiuji apologized, saying he hadn't known. The girl clarified that planting was different from monster cultivation. He explained that he had mistaken the monster seed for a regular fruit seed. Puzzled, the girl asked what a fruit seed was. Her reaction confused Himuro Kaiuji, and he soon came to a shocking realization: this world only had monster seeds. The girl stated that this was common knowledge, leaving Himuro Kaiuji speechless. He then turned to his ruined crops and cried out in frustration. The girl explained that when a monster dies, the plant withers as well. He wondered if there was a proper way to grow them. She confirmed that monsters couldn't be cultivated in the usual manner. She further elaborated that, to harvest them, people would issue requests for adventurers to gather the produce while the monsters were still alive, making them highly expensive. Himuro Kaiuji flinched upon hearing about the cost and asked why it was so high. The girl explained that recent harvests had been unusually low. He referred to her as a knight, but she formally introduced herself as Lily. He then questioned whether monster cultivation was truly that uncommon. Lily confirmed that monster plants grew naturally, and no one had ever succeeded in farming them. She admitted that this was her first time witnessing such a thing. Excited, Himuro Kaiuji proposed that they cultivate monsters together. He asked for permission to farm in the area and promised to share part of the harvest with her. Lily hesitated, as it involved raising monsters, but Himuro Kaiuji quickly pleaded, assuring her that he would properly control the plant monsters this time. He also requested financial support for farming tools. Lily determined that his actions didn't warrant expulsion and decided to show him a location with public water access. However, she demanded 50% of the harvest in exchange for cooperation. The two then formally introduced themselves. Soon after, they headed to the forest to hunt monsters. Himuro Kaiuji was confused about why they were hunting, and Lily proceeded to show him how to extract seeds from slain monsters. Lily pulled a seed from the pumpkin-like section of a monster's corpse and handed it to Himuro Kaiuji. They returned to the field, where she explained that the seed was from a jack-o'-lantern, a type of predatory plant. However, it wouldn't be aggressive unless provoked. As they planted it, Lily became curious about what kind of magic Himuro Kaiuji possessed to make monster cultivation possible. The next day, the field already had plants sprouting with pumpkins. Lily was amazed as she picked one up and instructed Himuro Kaiuji to bring some and follow her. They went into town and met a girl named Mina. Lily told Mina about Himuro Kaiuji's ability to grow monsters, which surprised her. Mina questioned whether it was truly possible. Lily presented the pumpkins, leaving Mina in shock. Lily whispered to Himuro Kaiuji that Mina's business had been struggling and asked if he could help her. While Mina tried to discuss the price, the two starving farmers eagerly suggested that they first turn the produce into food. After leaving Mina's store, Lily thanked Himuro Kaiuji. He didn't mind, as Mina's dish made from the jack-o'-lantern monster was delicious. Determined, Himuro Kaiuji vowed to become the greatest farmer in this world. Lily was perplexed by his declaration. As they returned to the fields, a deep male voice suddenly addressed Himuro Kaiuji, saying he was late. The voice expressed gratitude to Himuro Kaiuji for planting him, and then asked if he wanted to taste him. It turned out that the Jack-o'-lantern was speaking to him. Soon after, Himuro Kaiuji, Lily, and the talking Jack-o'-lantern observed some silk-producing monsters. Lily warned Himuro Kaiuji to stay quiet, explaining that these creatures, called Kaikoramachi, were extremely shy and would flee if they spotted a human. Himuro Kaiuji grumbled about not being warned earlier about the difficulty of catching them. Lily blamed him for insisting on getting fabric and running straight to the Kaikoramachi's nest. Himuro Kaiuji defended himself, saying clothes were expensive, but Lily retorted that gathering monsters for fabric was a time-consuming process. Himuro Kaiuji then questioned why Jack, the pumpkin monster, was tagging along. Jack responded that since they were technically his parents, he was obligated to protect them. As Himuro Kaiuji grew impatient waiting, a nearby egg hatched. Excited, he watched a newborn Kaikoramachi emerge, but Lily hushed him. Just then, Jack warned them that something was approaching. A monster known as the Hell Eagle appeared, hunting for Kaikoramachi. While the Kaikoramachi swiftly fled, the newborn struggled to escape. As the Hell Eagle lunged for it, Himuro Kaiuji rushed forward and saved the baby Kaikoramachi. Lily shouted at him to run, and he sprinted away. She then distracted the Hell Eagle and struck the back of its head, causing it to collapse. She reminded Himuro Kaiuji to at least warn her before making rash decisions. Everyone was surprised when the newborn Kaikoramachi approached Himuro Kaiuji and began spewing silk. Lily pointed out that Kaikoramachi would only do this if they felt at ease. Jack explained that it was a sign of gratitude, and Lily agreed, trusting Jack's insight as a fellow monster. Himuro Kaiuji decided to name the Kaikoramachi Machai and take care of it. Naturally, he was interested in its silk. Lily found it difficult to understand Himuro Kaiuji because he not only had the ability to grow monsters, but could also win their trust. Then, Himuro Kaiuji noticed an egg falling from a tree and asked about it. Lily explained that the tree had given birth to it. Himuro Kaiuji was shocked, saying that something like that shouldn't be possible. Lily further clarified that all monster plants were born from trees. Jack belonged to the fauna-type monsters, whose fruits eventually turned into creatures. Fauna monsters had their own trees that bore fruit, which dropped and hatched into baby monsters. Meanwhile, fish originated from Caphorbia. Lily also mentioned that monsters were categorized by danger levels, with SS being the most powerful and F being the weakest. Himuro Kaiuji became curious about the strength of SS-ranked monsters. Lily informed him that humans stood no chance against them since their opponents were heroes. Himuro Kaiuji was surprised and wondered when a hero would appear, but Lily had no idea. Himuro Kaiuji then questioned whether a monster plant could give birth to a different species. Lily confirmed that each plant could only produce its own kind. Soon after, Himuro Kaiuji noticed a monster egg and claimed he would raise it because he felt it was fate. Lily scolded him, reminding him that they had no clue what kind of monster it would turn into. Ignoring her warning, Himuro Kaiuji made up his mind, and Lily eventually gave up, making it clear that he would bear full responsibility. Back at home, everyone was surprised to see the bed that Machai had made. Himuro Kaiuji suggested selling Machai's silk, and Lily agreed, thinking it would help them afford clothing and other necessities. Himuro Kaiuji also mentioned his desire to buy and raise a mandrake. However, Lily strongly advised against it. Himuro Kaiuji assumed it was because of the mandrake's terrifying scream. Lily then explained that a mandrake's worth was significantly lower than Jack's, almost 100 times less. She told him to focus on making money from Machai first and repairing the house. Himuro Kaiuji worked tirelessly on his fields until he eventually obtained a mandrake seed and planted it. It wasn't long before the seed sprouted into a monster that resembled a small, innocent-looking girl. The creature immediately begged not to be eaten. Himuro Kaiuji was stunned, expecting something hideous instead. Lily clarified that this type of mandrake was harmless, though adventurers still pulled them out and killed them. Anxious, Himuro Kaiuji questioned whether mandrakes could actually be cooked. Lily explained that people usually cut off their heads since the rest of their body wasn't considered tasty. Cooking them was seen as cruel. Seeing the mandrake trembling, Himuro Kaiuji assured her that no one would harm her. However, the mandrake assumed she would simply be raised for food later. Himuro Kaiuji admitted he had initially thought that way, but after witnessing her defenselessness, he changed his mind. Jack was moved and even offered himself as a replacement meal. The mandrake finally realized she would be allowed to live. Himuro Kaiuji told her to do as she pleased and live with them. Lily smiled at the wholesome moment before heading to town. She found Himuro Kaiuji peculiar for taking care of monster plants. Typically, monster plants were treated as mere ingredients and could only survive in the wild. Merchants sold mandrakes knowing they couldn't be domesticated, and rare seeds were collected more for hobbies than practicality. Lately, the hunt for monster plants, especially rare ones, had intensified, and a group known as the Five Heroes had overexploited many of them. Lily started to worry that once the Five Heroes learned about Himuro Kaiuji raising monster plants, they might come after him. Just then, she overheard a few men discussing rumors about someone cultivating monster plants in the countryside, particularly mandrakes. One man mentioned that he had been hired to retrieve anything valuable from there. Meanwhile, back home, Himuro Kaiuji named the mandrake Dora and provided her with food and clothing. Dora, however, remained convinced that she was just being fattened up for future consumption. Himuro Kaiuji thought she was adorable, unlike other, more dangerous plants. Suddenly, the egg Himuro Kaiuji had picked up started moving slightly. He noted that it was aware of being raised. The men from before began sneaking toward the house. Jack alerted Himuro Kaiuji about the intruders, but it was too late. The men had already broken in. They confronted Himuro Kyoyuji, who was more concerned about his damaged door than their presence. Spotting Dora, the men immediately recognized her as a valuable first-class monster. They demanded that Himuro Kyoyuji hand her over, offering to pay for both her and the broken door. However, Himuro Kyoyuji refused. Seeing his defiance, the men decided to attack him together, but they failed because the monster Egg, Machai, Jack, and Lily stepped in to stop them. Lily was relieved that she arrived just in time. One by one, the men charged at Lily, but they were completely ineffective against her. Easily dodging their attacks, Lily decided to retaliate and swiftly knock them out with her sword. Himuro Kyoyuji thanked her, and she dragged the unconscious intruders back to headquarters, where her brother would deal with them. Before leaving, Lily told Himuro Kyoyuji that she was impressed by his actions and that her opinion of him had changed. She had known Dora since she was just a seed and had spent time raising her. Not just Dora, but all the others had given her a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before. Out of nowhere, Dora burst into tears, believing that Himuro Kyoyuji had nearly given her away. She then pledged her loyalty to him, vowing to serve him with all her heart, even offering herself to him. Startled, Himuro Kyoyuji told her to calm down. Later, Himuro Kyoyuji began selling his harvested goods, and customers were amazed by their quality. However, Lily warned him that his success would soon attract troublesome individuals. Himuro Kyoyuji told her not to stress over it, but before he could finish speaking, a massive man approached him, asking if he was Himuro Kyoyuji. The man stated that the town's lord wished to see him. Himuro Kyoyuji met the lord, who inquired if he was the one raising monster plants. Expecting to be expelled, Himuro Kyoyuji braced himself as the lord explained that there was an ongoing debate among the townspeople regarding his cultivation of monster plants. Surprisingly, many supported him due to the benefits he provided. The lord then requested a favor. He wanted Himuro Kyoyuji to raise a cockatrice and make it lay eggs. A cockatrice had recently been captured, but it refused to eat, and they hoped Himuro Kyoyuji could take care of it. Since the cockatrice population was dwindling, ensuring its reproduction would benefit the town. Naturally, the lord promised to compensate Himuro Kyoyuji if he succeeded. Himuro Kyoyuji then asked what would happen if he refused. Before long, Himuro Kyoyuji and the others arrived at the cage holding the cockatrice. Dora questioned whether the creature would actually lay eggs, and Himuro Kyoyuji replied that he had no choice since it was the lord's request. He attempted to feed the cockatrice various fruits, but it refused to eat. Lily then realized the cockatrice still had its pride, preferring to die rather than be imprisoned by humans. She started to suspect that the lord had tricked Himuro Kyoyuji, as he had originally planned to expel him. This situation seemed like a setup, giving the lord a legitimate excuse to remove Himuro Kyoyuji if he failed. Determined, Himuro Kyoyuji decided to release the cockatrice and unlocked its cage. The cockatrice lunged at him, barely missing his groin. Instead, it hit the ground and lost consciousness. Himuro Kyoyuji then asked about the cockatrice's danger level. Lily explained that cockatrices were ranked C, while the killer wolves they had encountered earlier were ranked D. Typically, monsters ranked C and above were beyond the capabilities of most adventurers, especially those ranked B or higher. Himuro Kyoyuji asked for examples, and Lily mentioned dragons and wyverns. Later, Himuro Kyoyuji successfully delivered numerous eggs to the lord. Shocked, the lord asked how he managed it. Himuro Kyoyuji explained that the cockatrice's true body was the snake part and that it had been suffering. Impressed, the lord acknowledged Himuro Kyoyuji's skills and allowed him to stay in the town. With a sense of relief, Himuro Kyoyuji realized he had been given a chance. He wasn't sure what the lord had in mind, but he was already planning his next big surprise. Later on, Himuro Kyoyuji received a reward from the lord, which turned out to be a valuable gemstone. He thought that raising monsters while earning money would make him rich. As he enjoyed the moment with his monsters, Lily arrived and was shocked to see the stone. Himuro Kyoyuji declared that he would sell it for money. However, Lily disagreed and insisted that it should be kept as an ornament. They kept arguing until the gemstone slipped from their hands and shattered into fragments. Himuro Kyoyuji was devastated. Suddenly, Lily panicked when Himuro Kyoyuji dashed outside. He then created a grave for the broken stone, realizing it was now worthless to sell. The following morning, tiny sprouts appeared from the soil where the shattered gemstone had been buried. As time passed, the sprouts fused together. Meanwhile, Himuro Kyoyuji went to his fields, wondering how long the egg would remain unhatched. At that moment, they noticed an enormous tree growing at the site where he had made the grave the day before. Lily then identified it as a wyvern tree. After hearing her, Himuro Kyoyuji suddenly realized something and quickly dragged Lily deep into the forest. They climbed a nearby mountain, searching for a monster resembling an animal to obtain a gemstone. While exploring, they encountered a massive bear-like monster. Lily explained that it was a brown bear king, an advanced form of an ordinary brown bear, ranked as a B-class monster. Himuro Kyoyuji told Lily to flee, but the female knight charged at the beast since he needed its gemstone. With her reliable sword, Lily delivered a powerful strike, but the bear effortlessly blocked it with its thick fur-covered arms. It retaliated with a swipe of its claws, and Lily narrowly evaded the attack. However, the bear wasn't finished and suddenly lunged at her with its head. Himuro Kyoyuji could only watch as Lily was knocked to the ground, injured by the impact. His shout caught the bear's attention, making him its next target. Just as it seemed the bear's fangs would tear off his head, something struck the bear forcefully, causing it to bend backward all the way toward Lily. Taking the opportunity, Lily swung her sword with full force and decapitated the monster. She rushed over to check on Himuro Kyoyuji and apologized for her carelessness. He took responsibility, saying it was his fault for dragging her into the forest. Grateful, he thanked the monster egg for saving his life. The next morning, Lily asked if Himuro Kyoyuji had confirmed his suspicions. He showed her the tree that had sprouted from the spot where he had buried the Brown Bear King's gemstone. He had realized that the gemstones inside monsters were actually seeds. If a monster was plant-based, its seeds had a typical shape, but for animal-type monsters, their seeds took the form of gemstones. Upon this discovery, Lily decided they should keep it a secret. Himuro Kayuji questioned why. She explained that such knowledge would shake the world since no one had ever successfully raised monsters before. She feared that if the 6 heroes learned about it, things would become chaotic. Himuro Kayuji then wondered who these individuals were. Lily advised him to focus on caring for the wyvern tree. Meanwhile, 6 people gathered for a meeting, and their discussion centered around Himuro Kayuji. One of them was eager to meet him, but another reminded everyone to remain serious, as the meeting concerned the future of the world. A woman in the group speculated that their lord was still withholding information and suggested they conduct reconnaissance first. Someone then proposed assigning the mission to the philosophy hero. A woman known as Bountiful Harvest volunteered, saying she would personally meet Himuro Kayuji since he had already piqued her interest. As she left, the others whispered about her behind her back, claiming that she had no combat ability yet held the same status as them. One of them argued that strength alone was not enough and that the world was changing, making it more crucial to have someone who could drive civilization forward. The woman they considered weak had made great contributions to modern cuisine, which was why she was respected among the 6 heroes. Nevertheless, they agreed they needed to first determine whether Himuro Kayuji posed a threat to them. Meanwhile, an egg began to crack, and a baby wyvern emerged. Himuro Kayuji nervously observed it before welcoming it as part of the family. The young wyvern excitedly jumped into his arms. Shortly after, Mina hesitantly approached Himuro Kayuji with a request. Himuro Kayuji mistakenly assumed it was a marriage proposal, but Mina was actually inviting him to join a cooking competition. She explained that it was an annual event that decided which restaurant would represent their country at a food festival in another nation. She believed that if Himuro Kayuji used his monster plants as ingredients, people would finally acknowledge him. Himuro Kayuji understood that many people held strong prejudices against him, but Mina had given him an opportunity to change their perception. She further explained that their country placed great importance on cuisine and that monster plants could greatly enhance recipes. Himuro Kayuji then realized that if he could present a flavor no one had ever experienced before, he could change public opinion. However, he was concerned that Mina's reputation might suffer if he failed. Mina simply smiled and assured him that he had already helped her in many ways. She also wanted others to see Himuro Kayuji as a good person. Touched, Himuro Kayuji found himself falling for her and agreed to join the competition. Meanwhile, Lily appeared exhausted from balancing her role as an adventurer and hunting monster plants. She noted how higher-ranked adventurers had no trouble since they received difficult missions directly from the government. An adventurer who accomplished great feats would be recognized as a warrior, which was the ultimate goal for most. However, she had no interest in that path, preferring a peaceful and independent life. As she thought about this, Himuro Kayuji came to mind. Just then, she bumped into an elegant woman who was searching for the Jonghu restaurant. Lily gave her directions and watched her walk away, feeling as if she had seen her before. Soon after, Lily learned that Himuro Kayuji and Mina were entering a cooking competition. She remarked that winning would be difficult since a gourmet noble would be attending. She explained that gourmet nobles were among the finest chefs in the world. Their family had refined revolutionary cooking techniques that granted them aristocratic status, and among them, one chef possessed unparalleled culinary skills. Mina wondered if this noble would also be competing. Lily confirmed that the gourmet noble would be assisting the Jonghu restaurant. Mina then recalled how Jonghu restaurant had completely ignored her arrival. She now felt nervous, realizing that winning against them would be even more challenging with the gourmet noble involved. A tense silence filled the air until Himuro Kayuji suddenly declared that they still had time to create a dish that would earn everyone's recognition. However, once the competition started, he would no longer have time to search for and cultivate new plants. Instead of looking for something else, he decided to concentrate on improving the quality of his existing ingredients. Surprisingly, Jack and Dora volunteered to be used as ingredients, but Himuro Kayuji refused. He had cockatrice eggs, which tasted far better than regular eggs. Some time ago, he had discovered a seed that turned out to be a cockatrice tree, allowing him to produce many cockatrices. Additionally, he still had devil carrots, which had coincidentally appeared while fleeing from something. Just then, he noticed a random killer plant had sprouted, scaring off the other monster plants. As he studied the aggressive plant monster, he began contemplating ways to make it edible. The day of the competition finally arrived, with judges including the Lord and several renowned culinary experts from the country. In the crowd, Lily informed Himuro Kayuji that the gourmet noble was nearby. Himuro Kayuji stared at her intensely, catching her attention. The noblewoman then approached him, recognizing him as the one raising monster plants. She smiled and playfully suggested a wager if Himuro Kayuji won. He could ask anything of her. Her words left Himuro Kayuji flustered as inappropriate thoughts filled his mind. Someone nearby was visibly jealous. The noblewoman then walked away with the Jonghu restaurant owner and introduced herself as fittest of the gourmet. The competition formally began, with each chef presenting their unique dishes. The judges sampled the food but kept giving average to low scores. Suddenly, rare ingredients such as the sea monster kraken were introduced. Fides prepared the ingredients with remarkable elegance, making her cooking process feel like a grand performance. After an impressive display of skill and technique, the Jonghu restaurant completed their dishes. Each dish appeared exquisite, as if they were precious treasures. The sight left Himuro Kayuji and Mina completely astonished. The judges tasted the dishes, and everyone shouted in unison about how flavorful they were. Aside from the Lord, all the judges gave flawless scores. The audience erupted in cheers as last year's champion, Jang Hu Restaurant, led the competition with 9.8 points, tied with the gourmet family's representative. Then, the host announced that a new restaurant, competing for the first time, was up next. Mina was introduced as the owner of a small but promising restaurant, while Himuro Kyoji was introduced as her assistant and a man famous for cultivating monster plants. Some in the audience were uneasy about Himuro Kyoji's profession, while others praised how tasty his ingredients were. One person even mentioned that Himuro Kyoji's monster plants had never harmed anyone before. Himuro Kyoji and Mina then presented their dishes to the judges. They prepared simple-looking meals made from jack-o'-lantern, mandrake, cocatris, and a special sauce extracted from a killer tree. Himuro Kyoji silently thanked Jack and Dora for their contributions. As the judges took their first bites, an unexpected silence filled the room. The crowd, along with Mina, Lily, and Himuro Kyoji, anxiously waited for their reactions. The Lord began trembling in his seat, leaving everyone uncertain whether he was displeased. Himuro Kyoji and the girls assumed they had lost, while Fidus smirked, confident in their victory. Then, without warning, all the judges lifted their scorecards, revealing perfect tens across the board. The crowd gasped in astonishment. As the host attempted to declare the winner, Fidus suddenly interrupted. She shouted that she couldn't accept losing after carefully selecting only the finest ingredients. Himuro Kyoji somewhat agreed, as he had personally witnessed the quality of her ingredients and her mastery as a chef. However, the city lord then urged Fidus to taste Himuro Kyoji's dish. She took a bite and immediately froze in shock. Her eyes widened as she lifted the bowl and cleaned her plate without hesitation. Blushing, she scolded Himuro Kyoji for daring to use a killer plant in the sauce. Himuro Kyoji responded that it would be easier to demonstrate rather than explain. He pulled off a cloth to reveal what Lily had brought over. The entire crowd was stunned to see a killer tree before them. Fidus questioned why it wasn't attacking, and Himuro Kyoji explained that it was cultivated in an isolated area without grass. Fidus argued that such a method should be impossible. Himuro Kyoji then introduced something called the diet farming method. He explained that any plant raised this way would lose its predatory instincts and instead become highly nutritious and delicious. He elaborated further, stating that killer plants and trees naturally attack because they accumulate excessive energy. However, when cultivated under the diet farming method, they cease attacking and instead channel their energy into producing fruit. To prove his point, Himuro Kyoji plucked the fruit from the tree and declared it safe to eat. Fidus hesitated but took a bite. Admitting defeat, she lowered her head. The host then officially declared Mina and Himuro Kyoji the winners, announcing that they would represent their country at the food festival in Mart Continent. Overwhelmed with happiness, Mina leaped into Himuro Kyoji's arms, tears of joy streaming down her face. The audience erupted in excitement, eager to try Himuro Kyoji's unique ingredients and Mina's cooking. Later, Fidus was seen following Himuro Kyoji around, blushing and smiling. Himuro Kyoji appreciated Lily's help, and she reassured him that attracting more customers was beneficial, thanks to the competition. Suddenly, they heard Jack shouting from the house. Rushing back, they were met by a small, adorable girl running toward Himuro Kyoji. She embraced him affectionately as if reuniting with a long-lost father. Confused, Himuro Kyoji turned to Jack, asking who the child was. Jack casually explained that the girl had been with them all along. It turned out that she had hatched from the egg. Himuro Kyoji was shocked since he had never expected a cute little girl to emerge from it. He wondered what kind of monster or monster plant she could be. Noticing that she couldn't speak yet, Lily suggested giving her a name. Since she kept repeating Sui, they decided to call her Sui. The little girl beamed with joy after receiving her name. Lily mentioned that this was her first time seeing a monster hatch in a human-like form. Suddenly, the front door swung open, revealing a figure carrying a large suitcase. The person scanned the room, impressed by the number of monster plants Himuro Kyoji had been raising. Himuro Kyoji turned and was startled to see Fidus standing there. Blushing, Fidus asked Himuro Kyoji to call her casually. She confessed that learning about the diet farming method had been the most fascinating experience she had ever had. Himuro Kyoji then questioned why she had come. With a smirk, Fidus reminded him of their bet and boldly declared that she now belonged to him. She hoped to live with him to learn more about monster plant cultivation. Dora and Lily immediately panicked at the sight of a new woman inserting herself into Himuro Kyoji's life. Fidus even made a teasing offer, but Himuro Kyoji flatly told her to go home. However, Fidus suddenly mentioned that she had been ordered to get close to Himuro Kyoji. Lily immediately tensed up, suspecting her connection to the heroes. She tried to question Fidus, but the latter ignored her. Fidus then declared that she no longer cared about her orders and was now fully devoted to serving Himuro Kyoji. Lily tried again to press her for details, but Fidus clung tightly to Himuro Kyoji instead. Sui then joined the embrace, enthusiastically headbutting Himuro Kyoji, knocking him out. Dora silently watched the chaos unfold, then, for the first time, shouted like the mandrake she was, demanding everyone to let go of Himuro Kyoji. Dora had always enjoyed napping beside her master when the weather was warm, but ever since Fidus arrived, her usual spot had been taken. For reasons unknown, this deeply irritated her. Besides Fidus, another rival had appeared, Sui. Sui was always near Himuro Kyoji, and it was clear that he cared for her greatly. Despite being a higher-class mandrake, Dora had been the first to be by her master's side. In her mind, the place closest to Himuro Kyoji should have belonged to her. As the older sister, she knew Himuro Kyoji was oblivious to all of this, but that only made it more frustrating. Sensing her distress, Himuro Kyoji asked Dora if something was wrong. Dora remained silent, turned away, and walked off, holding back her tears. Jack noticed and followed her. Dora used to perch on Himuro Kayuji's shoulder and head, but now, those spots were taken. His head was occupied by a wyvern, his legs by Machai, and Jack was always nearby. She also saw the special connection Himuro Kayuji had with Lily. It was different from the rest of them. With Lily, it was a human-to-human relationship, one filled with a deeper level of trust. Lost in thought, Dora accidentally tripped over a rock. She quickly stood back up and continued walking, but when she glanced back at the house, she came to a painful realization she was no longer needed. She distanced herself from Himuro Kayuji and wandered into the rain, allowing herself to be soaked. Before long, Jack caught up to her. He gently told her that if she stayed away too long, everyone would worry. When Jack asked what was wrong, Dora admitted that she felt irritated whenever other girls got close to Himuro Kayuji, and she didn't understand why. Jack then pointed out the obvious: Dora had feelings for Himuro Kayuji, just like everyone else. However, Jack added that, unlike the others, his feelings were not romantic. Wait, Jack was female. Even Dora was stunned. Jack then explained that Dora's jealousy stemmed from her affection for Himuro Kayuji. Saddened, Dora muttered that she was only a mandrake. Jack reassured her that her emotions were real and valid, regardless of what she was. Instead of focusing on what she disliked, Jack suggested thinking about the reasons she loved Himuro Kayuji. Dora then recalled all the peaceful times she had spent with Himuro Kayuji and realized the truth: her feelings for him had gone beyond mere admiration. She had truly fallen for him. Just then, a strange and eerie monster appeared nearby, calling out to Dora as if recognizing her as a mandrake. Before they could react, the creature ensnared Dora in a floating barrier and took her away. Jack tried to fight back and rescue Dora, but he was quickly knocked away and rolled across the ground until he passed out. Dora screamed in an attempt to wake Jack, but the eerie monster silenced her and tried to cover her up. She called for help, yet no sound escaped her lips. As she lost consciousness, the only thing on her mind was Himuro Kayuji. Meanwhile, Himuro Kayuji had made up his mind to search for Dora, as she had been missing for quite some time. Fidus assumed that Dora would return by herself, but Himuro Kayuji insisted that she was part of his family. At that moment, Lily arrived and offered to assist in looking for Dora since she was worried as well. They eventually discovered Jack in the nearby woods, looking pale. Jack revealed that Dora had been taken by a witch wearing white robes. Lily immediately suspected that it was the Snow Witch. When Himuro Kayuji inquired about the witch, Lily explained that there was a witch residing on a snowy mountain nearby. An army had once attempted to defeat her, but they were all turned into frozen statues. Himuro Kayuji then questioned why Dora had been abducted. Lily hesitated briefly, appearing uneasy. She explained that witches were technically human, but were also regarded as enemies of humanity due to their connection with the deceased Demon King. Himuro Kayuji was taken aback by this information. Lily then asked whether he still intended to save Dora after everything she had told him. Without hesitation, Himuro Kayuji confirmed that he would. Lily appeared troubled but accepted his decision. They then set out to rescue Dora. Meanwhile, in a castle perched atop the snowy mountain, a woman was gasping for air. She was the Snow Witch, and she held Dora in her arms. She appeared to be in distress. A voice from her memories called her Yisu, and she recalled that not all monsters were wicked. They were vital creatures that helped maintain balance in the world, making human survival possible, and they were not simply allies or foes. Those who coexisted with monsters were referred to as witches. Yisu's brother had been a brilliant and knowledgeable witch. He had been enthusiastic about researching monsters and had immersed himself in studying them. Yisu had always been frail, but she had the unique ability to understand the thoughts of monsters. Because of this gift, she had been able to serve as a bridge between humans and monsters. One day, her brother encountered a dryad. The poor creature had striking blue hair that could be used to make various medicines, making her a target for adventurers. They helped heal her and named her Dori. Yisu was typically bad at communicating with people, but with Dori, she had set aside her social anxiety. She felt she didn't need any friends aside from Dori. However, that happiness had been short-lived, as monsters began to be seen as nothing but threats by self-proclaimed champions of justice. Since witches lived alongside monsters, they too were labeled as villains. Despite being called witches, they lacked the power to fight back. Yisu's parents and brother had given their lives to help her and Dori escape. The two of them eventually fled deep into the icy mountains. Not long after, Dori's health deteriorated. She was Yisu's dearest companion, and Yisu wanted to do something to save her. That was when she came across a mandrake in the forest, a high-class variant that had the potential to heal Dori. When Yisu entered the room, Dori was shocked to see her holding a defenseless young girl. She begged Yisu not to harm Dora and insisted that she could not be saved anyway. Then, she softly apologized to Dora. Dora calmed down and mentioned that her master possessed the ability to raise monsters, which might be able to help Dori. Initially, Yisu didn't believe her. However, when they peered into their magic crystal and saw Himuro Kayuji and his companions traversing the snowy mountains, Yisu realized that the mandrake she had captured had friends just like Dori. She was ready to accept that she might not be forgiven for what she had done. When Himuro Kayuji and the others arrived, they were greeted by a remorseful and tearful Yisu. Himuro Kayuji was baffled by the situation. Dora quickly leaped into Himuro Kayuji's arms. As they celebrated their reunion, Yisu awkwardly avoided their gaze. Dora pitifully glanced at her before asking Himuro Kayuji if he could save the dying dryad. Himuro Kayuji was startled to encounter a new species of monster. Dori weakly noticed them and apologized for Yisu's actions. Himuro Kayuji assured her that he didn't mind, as long as Dora forgave them. He examined Dori and realized that necrosis had already begun to spread through her body. Himuro Kayuji explained to Yisu that the freezing climate had worsened Dori's condition and warned that it might already be too late. Yisu began sobbing, unable to imagine life without Dori. Dori reassured her that everything would be okay. Himuro Kayuji confirmed with Lily that dryads were a form of plant-based monster. Lily clarified that Dori could regrow from a new sprout after passing away, but she might not retain her former self. Suddenly, Yizu panicked as Dori's body became unresponsive and she slipped into a lifeless state. Himuro Kayuji and the others could only watch in sorrow. That was the moment Dori took her last breath. However, a few days later, Himuro Kayuji successfully cultivated a part of Dori. Unlike other plants, she did not require a seed. A small stem was enough. The newborn dryad slowly awakened and found Yisu staring at her. She paused for a moment, her eyes wide, before sweetly calling out Yisu's name. Yisu's eyes filled with tears. Dora also started crying, and Himuro Kayuji gently comforted her. Overwhelmed with emotion, Yisu stood up and expressed her gratitude to Himuro Kayuji. Himuro Kayuji thought she looked adorable. Suddenly, their heartfelt moment was interrupted by Lily, who had a question. She asked Yisu if she knew anything about the sealed witch and whether she had ever attacked humans. Yisu was quick to deny any wrongdoing, exclaiming that she would never do such a thing. Lily, though skeptical, decided to trust her. Himuro Kayuji then asked what the situation with the sealed witch was all about. Lily revealed that the witches had taken something important from her. As Himuro Kayuji silently watched Lily leave, he wondered what she had lost to the witches in the past. He noticed that Yisu seemed downcast, so he reassured her that Lily wasn't a bad person. He believed that, in time, Lily would come to understand Yisu. Even so, he was unsettled, as it was the first time he had seen Lily act that way. Yisu wondered aloud if she could ever be friends with Lily. Himuro Kayuji suggested that she and he should become friends first. As they shook hands, the other plant monsters joined in. Jack then asked if she could be part of the group as well. Upon seeing Jack, Yizu suddenly panicked, recalling that she had attacked her before. She immediately apologized for hurting Jack. Yizu feared that Jack still held a grudge against her. However, Jack forgave her. Understanding that she had only been trying to save her dear friend Dori, Jack expressed hope that they could become friends too. One peaceful day, Sui was using Jack as her personal horse. Himuro Kayuji and Dora noticed and quickly told Sui to stop, as it was dangerous. Sui then switched to Yisu and happily munched on the melons she had. Himuro Kayuji walked over just to check on Dora and apologized for the trouble Sui had caused. Yisu didn't mind and asked if Sui was also a monster plant. Just as Yisu was about to share more information, Sui interrupted by leaping into Himuro Kayuji's arms. She then cutely showed him some butterflies she had caught. Lily identified them as butterfly flowers, rare creatures considered lucky plants. Sui then gifted one to Himuro Kayuji and another to Lily. Lily explained that by tapping on the butterfly, it would hover wherever she wanted and follow commands. Lily thanked Sui for the thoughtful gift and promised to treasure it. Himuro Kayuji felt as though he was falling in love with Lily all over again. Suddenly, loud sounds erupted outside the house. Himuro Kayuji wondered if it was those fake adventures again, possibly after Sui. He urged everyone to go inside and grabbed a hoe as an improvised weapon for protection. However, when he opened the door, instead of intruders, confetti burst into the air, revealing a cute girl named Mikoshi. She introduced herself as the goddess of their world and stated that she had been watching Himuro Kayuji for some time, confirming that he was the one she had been expecting. This left Himuro Kayuji completely confused. Mikoshi repeated her introduction, and Himuro Kayuji couldn't help but wonder if she might have some kind of mental issue. Annoyed by his thoughts, Mikoshi scolded him for being disrespectful. Meanwhile, Lily trembled as she tried to confirm if the girl before them was truly their goddess. Mikoshi confidently confirmed her identity, but insisted that her arrival should not be treated as a religious event. She then became serious and asked Himuro Kayuji to listen carefully, as she intended to reveal Sui's true nature. Himuro Kayuji had no choice but to set aside his skepticism. He asked if Lily and Phytus could accompany him. Mikoshi had no objections and lightly tapped Himuro Kayuji's shoulder. Moments later, they all teleported to a different location. Lily was visibly shocked when she saw what lay before her. Mikoshi explained that the enormous tree before them was the World Tree. She stated that no ordinary humans had ever stepped foot in this sacred place. She further elaborated that the World Tree was often referred to as the Tree of Life. According to legend, after consuming the fruit of wisdom to understand the universe, Adam and Eve had also eaten the fruit of immortality, which transformed them into gods. However, they were resented and subsequently cast out by the other gods. The World Tree they stood before was said to originate from the story of the Garden of Eden and was born from one of the 10 Sephiroth. Mikoshi then mentioned that people from different worlds might have their own interpretations and beliefs regarding the World Tree compared to Earth's version. In this world, there were once 10 continents, each with its own tree of life. Unfortunately, 6 of them had perished, leaving only 4 remaining. She then asked Himuro Kayuji to help in restoring these trees of life. Himuro Kayuji was confused as to why only 4 were left. Lily then explained that humans had cut the others down, which surprised Himuro Kayuji. Phytus added that those trees were no longer called trees of life. They were now referred to as demonic trees. Himuro Kayuji found this strange since it was the complete opposite of what the name Tree of Life suggested. Mikoshi went on to explain that all monster plants were born from seeds, and those seeds originally came from the Tree of Life. As the seeds grew, they gave rise to various monsters. Lily then added that, from a human perspective, a tree that produced monsters could itself be seen as a monster. Phytus pointed out that this was why humans had been cutting them down. Tears welled up in Mikoshi's eyes as she called humans cruel. Monsters were a natural part of the world, yet humans only saw them as targets for hunting. She simply wanted both sides to coexist peacefully. She lamented that 100 years ago, when humans discovered the origins of monster plants, They began to hunt down what they now called demonic trees. Himuro Kayuji understood that if monsters disappeared entirely, the balance of the world would be thrown off. However, Mikoshi explained that a certain group of monster slayers had disrupted the equilibrium that once existed. Lily referred to these individuals as the Mighty Six, the heroes who had successfully cut down the demonic trees. Fidus stated that those who accomplished such a feat somehow gained the power to influence the world itself. Himuro Kayuji complained that growing a tree of life seemed impossible for him and felt that such a task was only suited for a god. Mikoshi then informed him that he possessed the breath of life. Himuro Kayuji finally realized that this skill was the reason behind his rapid farming success. He fully grasped that his reincarnation had granted him an ability comparable to a cheat skill. Mikoshi stated that raising monsters was no different from nurturing life itself. Lily recognized that Himuro Kayuji held divine-like powers. Mikoshi reminded him that no one had ever questioned her ways, and Himuro Kayuji realized that Mikoshi had been subtly influencing events. She then requested that Himuro Kayuji find a core to grow a new tree of life. A hologram appeared before him, showing an image of the core, and Mikoshi claimed that one could be found inside the heart of a tree. Ever since the trees had been destroyed, humans had taken possession of the cores. Himuro Kayuji quickly deduced that the cores were in the hands of the 6 heroes. He broke into a cold sweat, knowing that these people were strong enough to cut down trees of life and slay high-ranking monsters. There was no way he could simply ask them to hand over the cores. He felt trapped and considered declining Mikoshi's request. Just then, Mikoshi dropped a shocking revelation. She stated that if the remaining 4 trees of life were also destroyed, the world would come to an end. Himuro Kayuji realized that the goddess was subtly implying that he, too, would perish if that happened. Hearing his thoughts, Mikoshi confirmed that he had understood everything correctly. Himuro Kayuji found the entire situation absurd and suggested that Mikoshi should just inform everyone, especially the 6 heroes, directly about the crisis. Mikoshi explained that she was only allowed to watch over the world and was forbidden from interfering in human affairs. Himuro Kayuji acknowledged that humans had the right to determine their own fate and that the gods could not be blamed for their choices. He then questioned why she had chosen to ask him for help. Mikoshi admitted that after observing the world for so long, she had grown attached to it. Himuro Kayuji reflected on everything precious to him in this world. Dora, Jack, Fidus, Yizu, Lily, Sui, and every other monster plant he had met. Mikoshi confessed that she could no longer stand by and do nothing, which was why she had sought out Himuro Kayuji's help. After a moment of silence, Himuro Kayuji finally agreed to gather the cores and restore the trees of life. He stated that since he had been given another chance at life, he wouldn't let it go to waste. Mikoshi expressed her gratitude in advance. A short while later, Yizu and the monster plants, who had been relaxing back home, were startled when Himuro Kayuji and the others suddenly reappeared. Mikoshi then made a shocking announcement about Sui's identity. She revealed that Sui was actually the child of the Demon King. Everyone fell silent, staring at the confused Sui until the silence was shattered by Himuro Kayuji's loud scream of disbelief. Another peaceful day arrived, and the monster plants were preparing something with Sui. Jack was relieved that Sui had managed to step outside. They were planning something special for their master, who was currently busy getting ready for a cooking competition. Inside the house, Fidus was teaching Himuro Kayuji about the difference between noble cuisine and their usual meals, with a particular focus on sauces. As she continued explaining, she noticed Himuro Kayuji writing a recipe and asked if he was drawing a monster plant. Himuro Kayuji explained that a patty rice monster had edible seeds growing in its hair, but they weren't suitable for the competition. However, as a Japanese person, he had a strong desire to make onigiri, which piqued Fidus's interest. Just then, Mina came rushing in with an invitation letter. Himuro Kayuji was surprised by how quickly it had arrived. Mina proceeded to read the letter's contents. If they managed to win the competition, Mina's restaurant would be elevated to a 7-star ranking, and the grand prize was a gem from a world tree. Both Himuro Kayuji and Fidus were taken aback, as such a reward was not something that would typically be given away. Mina further explained that the previous year's champion, the renowned sage Kasrina, had personally provided it as the grand prize. Fidus was utterly shocked. She then revealed that Kasrina was a legendary figure in the culinary world, having single-handedly advanced the field by an entire century. Additionally, as the reigning champion, Kasrina had the privilege of selecting the theme, and she chose seafood. Himuro Kayuji was stunned since he had never worked with seafood before. Mina then mentioned that the monster plant she planned to use was the EST-ranked Leviathan. Fidus was astonished because it was classified as a 5-star rarity. Mina admired Kasrina's skill. Fidus then questioned why her master was going to such lengths. Himuro Kayuji quickly realized from her words that Fidus's master was none other than Kasrina. Fidus admitted that Kasrina had been her mentor in cooking and that she had been her apprentice for a long time. She also confessed that it was Kasrina who initially instructed her to approach Himuro Kayuji. She admitted that it had been the original plan, but she chose to stay with Himuro Kayuji because she had come to genuinely respect his talent. She apologized for keeping the truth from him all this time. Himuro Kayuji responded that he understood, as he had been somewhat suspicious of her. However, seafood was something he had yet to cultivate, and he figured that Kasrina must have been well aware of his weakness. Fidus stated that her master had rightfully earned the title of heroic sage. Not only was she highly skilled in combat, but she also possessed both wisdom and exceptional culinary abilities. Fidus assumed her master had picked the theme based on the outcome of the previous competition. To lighten the mood, Sui walked over with a fruit and handed it to Himuro Kayuji, making him recall the sauce he had previously created using the killer plant's fruit. Since Fidus had licked her plate clean, he speculated that this world had only been using basic seasonings like salt and pepper, making his sauce a groundbreaking discovery. With this knowledge, he believed he could secure victory by developing a new sauce. At that moment, Himuro Kayuji had an idea. He planned to use jewel beans in the competition and incorporate the plant beasts he had been cultivating. He then fell silent, causing the girls to grow concerned. Himuro Kayuji realized that Kasrina would be using an ESD-ranked monster plant, and even if he devised a new method, the difference in quality would still be immense. He needed an ingredient of equal value to stand a chance. He soon admitted that his current supplies were insufficient and requested some time alone. Stepping outside, he let out a deep sigh. Jack wondered if there was a way to cheer him up. To Himuro Kayuji's surprise, his monster plants had prepared a hot tub for him. Everyone got in and enjoyed the warm water. Dora explained that they had used firestones to heat the bath and placed hot spring pebbles inside to help Himuro Kayuji recover more quickly. Himuro Kayuji expressed his gratitude and gazed at his bruised hand. Sui then asked him what was wrong. He replied that he was exhausted from preparing for the competition. At that moment, Himuro Kayuji recalled the conversation with Mikoshi regarding Sui's true identity. Mikoshi explained that the Demon King was the ruler of monster plants and plant beasts. Essentially, he was the guardian of the world trees and was regarded as their rightful protector. However, several years ago, the 6 heroes had slain him. Before his death, he managed to seal Sui in a protective shell and send her to safety. The eggshell was actually a magical barrier meant to safeguard Sui. Unlike other plant beasts, the Demon King had personally ensured his child's protection rather than leaving her in the care of others. Himuro Kayuji wondered how he had even been able to raise Sui. Mikoshi clarified that it was due to his unique ability, Breath of Life, and that the eggshell was nearly impossible to break. However, Sui had managed to break free on her own because she had come to view Himuro Kayuji as her father. Although he felt slightly awkward being considered a father, he ultimately accepted the role, knowing that Sui was happy. Seeing this, Lily also smiled. Mikoshi then brought up the 4 remaining trees of life, warning that the world's end was approaching. She explained that the Demon King had existed to protect these trees, and if they were all destroyed, there would no longer be a place for the Demon King in the world. Himuro Kayuji then realized that if he failed to recover the world tree gems, Sui's life would also be at risk. Soon after, the cooking competition was bustling with staff and shipments of ingredients. The sheer number of crates impressed everyone, as it signified the scale of the event. Curious staff members peeked at some of the rare ingredients. An acting leader quickly stopped them, warning that interfering might disrupt the preservation spells. He sighed and reminded them that the Grand Carnival was set to begin in less than a month. Meanwhile, Himuro Kayuji wore a troubled expression as he contemplated his next move. He had devised a strategy to compete against Kasrina, but lacked a crucial ingredient. At that moment, Lily approached and pointed out that he wasn't acting like himself. Himuro Kayuji was surprised by her sudden appearance. Lily explained that she had heard from Mina that he was stressing over his dish. She suspected that he had thought of a solution, but had given up on it. Himuro Kayuji felt a little embarrassed that she had figured it out, but Lily insisted that it was obvious just by looking at his face. She then demanded that he tell her what ingredient he needed. However, Himuro Kayuji hesitated, unwilling to put Lily in danger for it. He wasn't even sure if retrieving the ingredient would involve a dangerous quest. Suddenly, Lily grabbed him by the collar and sternly warned him not to underestimate her. She reminded him that they were a team, and teammates who trust each other should always have each other's backs. She emphasized that this wasn't just Himuro Kayuji's problem, as she had also been there when the goddess explained the situation, and she, too, wanted to save Sui. She firmly stated that their bond was strong and urged Himuro Kayuji to trust her. Eventually, Himuro Kayuji agreed to let her help, though he insisted on going as well. Phytus soon arrived with the other plant monsters, but Himuro Kayuji told her that this wasn't something she needed to assist with. Phytus then reminded him that because her master had won last year, even stronger competitors would be entering this time, making the contest much more challenging than before. She suggested that Himuro Kayuji and Mina focus entirely on the cooking aspect. Lily agreed with Phytus and reassured Himuro Kayuji that he wasn't facing this challenge alone. Seeing everyone supporting him, Himuro Kayuji felt a sense of relief. He now understood that he was never alone. Himuro Kayuji then requested a favor from Lily, Jack, and Wyvern. He asked them to subdue the EST-ranked plant beast, Leviathan, on his behalf. Lily and Jack assured him that he could count on them. As Himuro Kayuji watched them leave, he asked the rest of the group to support him, as their encouragement meant more than just motivation. His only objective in the contest was to claim the championship. Once Lily set off to face Leviathan, Himuro Kayuji dedicated himself to honing his cooking skills every day under Mina and Phytus's guidance. Although he had concerns, everyone around him was helping him prepare for the Grand Carnival until it was finally time to depart for Mart. They boarded a massive steamboat powered by gems from monster plants. Dora reassured Himuro Kayuji that Lily and the others would be fine. Though still worried, he mentioned that he had already sent reinforcements to aid them. Before long, the ship reached Mart. Himuro Kayuji found himself struggling through the bustling crowd, but was soon astonished by the vast size of the cooking contest venue. Both he and the others felt anxious seeing how grand the event was. It wasn't long before the competition officially began, with the host warmly welcoming both the participants and the audience. The dishes served in the event would later be published in cookbooks and eventually become globally recognized recipes. Standing before his competitors, Himuro Kayuji grew uneasy, as they appeared to be highly skilled culinary masters. The contestants were renowned chefs from various regions, carefully selected for this competition. All plant beasts and monster plants underwent strict inspections. The panel of judges was composed of esteemed food scientists and distinguished chefs from different nations. These influential figures in the gourmet industry would be evaluating their dishes. The World Tree Gem, the grand prize, was then revealed, leaving Himuro Kayuji astonished as he saw it for the first time. Following the judge's introduction, the host presented the reigning champion, seated regally on a throne. She was none other than the heroic sage, Kasmina. Whoever advanced to the final round would have to face her. Without any further delay, the first match commenced between Rudd Restaurant, known for hunting plant beasts, and Mina Restaurant, the rising establishment that had won people's hearts and appetites. The participants were given only an hour to complete their dishes, and the host officially signaled the start of the match. Team Rudd began by gathering firewood and igniting a large bonfire in the center of the stage. They skillfully mounted a massive piece of meat onto a thick pole and easily rotated it over the flames for roasting. Observing their physical strength, the host curiously asked if this was part of their unique cooking method. The team leader responded that it was just the beginning. They still had to extract the remaining oil and locate the firestone hidden within the firewood. Meanwhile, Team Mina was expertly mincing meat and monster plants with precision. The host assumed they were preparing meatballs, but Himuro Kayuji clarified that they were actually making hamburgers. Mina, on the other hand, concentrated on assembling a salad. The host was intrigued by the way the vegetables were being sliced, as it seemed quite unusual. Suddenly, the host was startled by a towering mound of meat that unexpectedly moved on its own. To everyone's surprise, a Team Rudd member effortlessly lifted it. The leader of Team Rudd then wielded 2 small spoons and began performing intricate motions in front of the meat. In response, thin slices of meat fluttered through the air like flower petals. He skillfully arranged the slices before cracking an egg at the center. Their cooking station transformed into what resembled a blooming flower garden, showcasing their unique culinary style. The audience erupted in applause. Just then, a loud cracking noise drew Himuro Kayuji's attention. It was Mina, effortlessly breaking open a massive egg with a single hand. Himuro Kayuji was amazed, while Mina shyly reacted to the attention. With only 10 minutes remaining, Himuro Kayuji and Mina focused on finishing their dish. Meanwhile, Team Rudd had completed roasting their meat and was cutting it into thick slices, placing them on a sizzling hot plate. The alarm sounded, marking the start of the judging process. Team Rudd was the first to present their dish, grizzly bear steak accompanied by a raw fish salad. The judges examined their plates and began tasting the food in silence. One of the elder judges expressed his admiration for the expertly roasted steak. He also praised the salad, noting that it had no trace of a fishy odor. Next, it was Mina's team's turn to showcase their dish. Himuro Kayuji took the initiative to explain to the judges how the dish should be eaten, surprising them with the unexpected addition of fish. Their creation consisted of a hamburger made from grizzly bear, cockatrice, and killer wolf meat. The salad featured cockatrice egg paired with a mayonnaise-based sauce. One of the judges took a bite and immediately noticed the layered flavors within the meat, as well as the unique taste of the mayonnaise. Once the judging concluded, the host proudly declared Mina's restaurant as the winner of the first round. The audience cheered in celebration. However, Himuro Kayuji, while thrilled with the victory, felt slightly overwhelmed upon realizing that he still had 3 more rounds to go before reaching the finals. Despite his shock, he knew he had to keep winning for Sui's sake. The second day of the contest arrived, and half of the participants had already been eliminated. Mina's team was set to face off against Ristorante Ryan in the next round. To his surprise, Himuro Kayuji noticed that one of the opposing team members had a baby perched on his shoulder. An older man revealed that the baby was actually the restaurant's owner, and they were more than ready for the challenge. The match commenced, and both teams swiftly got to work. Throughout the competition, Himuro Kayuji repeatedly reminded himself to give it his all, hoping that Lily was also doing her best. Meanwhile, on a faraway continent called Kokuma, Lily was locked in battle against the ESD-ranked monster, Leviathan. She acknowledged its immense strength as it gathered highly pressurized water in its mouth. Lily silently apologized to Himuro Kayuji, regretting that she wouldn't be able to bring Leviathan back. Back at the cooking competition, both teams were busy preparing their dishes, and the audience eagerly awaited the outcome. Mina and Himuro Kayuji were giving their all. At the same time, the baby owner was skillfully arranging something that resembled building blocks. The host curiously asked if they were strictly using monster plants. The baby chef spoke confidently, stating that monster plants had always been considered mere side ingredients. However, he declared that they were a treasure trove of flavors, and he was determined to prove it on this grand stage. The host then took note of the special gloves the baby was wearing. Enthusiastically, the baby explained that the gloves were specifically designed for handling monster plants sensitive to heat. After a long and detailed scientific explanation, the host simply hoped that the dish would taste as good as it sounded. Moving over to Mina's team, the host asked Himuro Kayuji what he was preparing. Himuro Kayuji revealed that he was making red bean dumplings. He then demonstrated the process, impressing the host with his skill in crafting dango. As the host announced that only half of the time had passed, Team Ristorante Ryan suddenly declared that they were finished. Himuro Kayuji and the host were both surprised. The elder judge signaled his approval, and Team Ristorante Ryan presented their dishes, cubes of monster plants arranged into a castle, alongside a vibrant monster plant cake. As the judges sampled the food, they discovered that each cube had a distinct and unique flavor. Ryan stood proudly, knowing he had put great effort into his dish. The judges were amazed, realizing that the dishes had been made solely from monster plants. Even the elder judge was deeply impressed. Ristorante Ryan laughed confidently, telling Himuro Kayuji's team to do their best, though it seemed like the results were already decided. At that moment, Team Mina completed their dish, steamed buns infused with different flavors within the dough, accompanied by a plain-looking soup. Despite the food being hot, The judges eagerly took a bite of the buns and sipped the soup, enjoying both. Their expressions showed satisfaction and comfort. They found the combination of flavors and the filling remarkable. The variety of tastes and the warmth of the dish made it perfect for the continent's cold climate. The second round concluded with Team Mina emerging victorious. Ristorante Ryan was in disbelief, loudly protesting that he should not have lost. The elder judge acknowledged that Ristorante Ryan's dishes were impressive. However, after consuming all the desserts, they ended up feeling cold. Just then, Kyuji juice was served, warming up their bodies. That was the key reason behind Team Mina's win. Ryan began crying, regretting that he had not included any warm ingredients. Meanwhile, Himuro Kyuji could not fully celebrate as his thoughts remained focused on Lily. He worried that something might have gone wrong, but kept reminding himself not to assume the worst. She had promised to return, and he needed to trust her. In Kokuma, Lily tried to evade Leviathan's assault. However, the monster momentarily lost focus, allowing Wyvern to scratch its eye. The beast roared in pain as Lily swiftly moved to its blind spot. Leviathan's massive body crashed into the water, but quickly recovered and counterattacked. Its powerful water breath hit Lily directly. Wyvern attempted to strike again, but was swatted away as if it were an insect. Jack desperately tried to wake Lily, but it was already too late. The Leviathan loomed menacingly behind them. Jack knew they were doomed. Meanwhile, back with Himuro Kyuji, he suddenly felt his chest tighten. Mina noticed and asked if he was okay, but Himuro Kyuji assured her that he was fine. It was now the start of the semi-final round, where Team Mina would compete against Carl Restaurant, the most renowned establishment on the continent. Himuro Kyuji was caught off guard as flower petals fluttered around the charming Carl. With that, the round officially commenced, and Carl unveiled a Hell Eagle. However, it was completely white. Carl explained that this type only consumed monster plants, making its meat tender and naturally sweet. Furthermore, it had been freshly caught. Seeing such a rare ingredient, the host became curious about its taste. She then wondered how Team Mina would counter it. Upon noticing Himuro Kyuji's ingredient, she asked what kind of rare meat he had selected. Himuro Kyuji simply stated that it was regular cicatris meat. She then turned to Mina, questioning the rarity of the egg she was holding, but Mina replied that it was just an ordinary cicatris egg. The host was taken aback before exclaiming that, as expected, Team Mina was using only common ingredients. At that moment, Carl interrupted, disagreeing with the idea. He asserted that in cooking, the real magic was in pouring love into the dish. He explained that by gazing, smelling, listening, and concentrating one's desires into the food, the ingredients would respond to the cook's call. Himuro Kyuji became irritated by Carl's flowery words and vowed to defeat him. Thus, the battle between ordinary and extraordinary ingredients began. Both teams remained composed while preparing their dishes. Silence filled the stage, with only the sounds of cooking and the tantalizing aromas making the audience's mouths water. The time limit ran out, and Carl was the first to present his dish, the White Hell Eagle pole. The judges praised Carl's use of herbs and how he achieved a crispy texture on the outside while keeping the meat tender inside. The elder judges were astonished by how skillfully the meat had been prepared, and the herbs further elevated its flavor. Next, it was Team Mina's turn. Himuro Kyuji stepped forward and introduced their dish as something from his hometown. It was oyakodon steamed rice topped with cicatris egg and meat. The dish appeared incredibly simple. However, once the judges took a bite of the meat, they were visibly shocked. They immediately demanded to know if it was truly cicatris meat. Himuro Kyuji confirmed it, explaining that he had personally raised the monster. The audience was taken aback by his revelation, though Kasarina remained unfazed since she already knew. Himuro Kyuji then elaborated on how he had learned to reduce the monster's stress and observe its eating habits. By doing so, its meat and eggs had become exceptionally delicious. The elder judge was impressed, finding it unbelievable that cicatris eggs and meat could reach such a level of quality. Without hesitation, he declared Team Mina the winners of the semi-final round. The host excitedly announced that they would be advancing to the finals. Carl approached Himuro Kyuji and wished him luck in the upcoming match. At that moment, a commanding voice rang out, stating that she had been waiting for Himuro Kyuji. Himuro Kyuji turned toward the nearby throne and locked eyes with Kasarina, who stared intently at him. She held up the gem, fully aware that he had been searching for it. The host officially declared the start of the final round and questioned whether the first-time participants could handle the reigning champion and one of the legendary heroes, Kasarina. Kasarina reiterated that she had been waiting for Himuro Kyuji. She then drew her blade, urging him to display his full abilities. She proceeded to reveal her personally designed cooking set, which was massive. Along with it, an overwhelming amount of ingredients appeared, requiring a large team to manage them. Mina commented that Kasarina's cooking skills far surpassed others, suggesting that she might be capable of handling everything on her own. The host then officially kicked off the final round. At that moment, Kasarina's staff cut the rope of a catapult, launching her and her ingredients high into the sky. While airborne, she began swinging her blade, effortlessly slicing the ingredients at an astonishing speed. The entire audience watched in silence, captivated by the breathtaking display. Kasarina was executing a solo performance, treating the ingredients as her props. Her movements were so swift that after images could be seen as she worked. Himuro Kyuji perceived her actions as resembling the thousand-armed Buddha. The finely chopped ingredients seemed to move on their own, neatly falling into pots and onto plates. As the Leviathan's head dropped, the dishes were set to cook. Kasarina then descended and, with a single swing of her sword, generated fire to ignite the massive pots. Dragon-like flames erupted across the stage, turning the cooking contest into a spectacular performance. Meanwhile, the host turned to check on Team Mina, only to find that their station looked completely normal. There were no visible ingredients, and Himuro Kayuji was merely boiling water. Kasrina questioned why he was not using the monsters he had proudly raised. Himuro Kayuji explained that a single month was not sufficient to raise monsters specifically for seafood cuisine. Kasrina was disappointed that the bait had only attracted a weak opponent. Seeing Himuro Kayuji's puzzled expression, she clarified that he had used the World Tree Gem as a lure. She had expected a monster rancher capable of showing something remarkable. The two remained silent, simply gazing at each other for a while. Himuro Kayuji then declared that he would claim victory, taking both the championship title and the gem. Kasrina seemed amused and hoped to be entertained. The championship match did not require flashy techniques or special skills, but rather focused on the ingredients' taste and freshness. Meanwhile, back in Kokuma, a familiar witch rescued Lily from near death. Yasu revealed that she had come to help because Himuro Kayuji had asked her. Lily stood up and saw that the Leviathan was now frozen solid. She checked on the others and was relieved to find that Wyvern was merely unconscious. However, Jack had not survived, as Yasu presented a piece of pumpkin. Suddenly, the ice surrounding the Leviathan began to crack. Lily then requested a favor from Yasu. After a brief exchange, the two resumed their effort to subdue the Leviathan. Meanwhile, Kasrina presented her dishes, which included King Kraken tempura, golden roasted serpent star, colorfish braised in wine, and boiled Leviathan. The judges were amazed by the presentation before proceeding to taste Kasrina's food. They praised how well the difficult-to-catch colorfish was prepared. One judge noted that the serpent star had been roasted to perfection, preserving all of its flavors. The King Kraken tempura, despite being a tricky ingredient, was also delicious. The elder judge was moved to tears, declaring the boiled Leviathan to be the best dish. The panel continued to express admiration for Kasrina's cooking, some overwhelmed with emotion. The host pointed out how the judges showered Kasrina with praise. Meanwhile, Himuro Kayuji remained silent, observing the situation. Back in Kokuma, Lily pressed on in her battle against the Leviathan. Yasu attempted to strike from a distance with magic, but the Leviathan took notice of her. Lily warned her to escape, but Yasu declared that the moment was perfect. She then unleashed her magic, Absolute Zero. The entire ocean froze, preventing the Leviathan from escaping. Seizing the opportunity, Lily swiftly sliced the Leviathan's body, cutting it into pieces. With her task complete, Yasu began to walk away quietly. Lily called out to her, urging her to wait, and admitted that she did not hate her. She confessed that she feared witches because one had taken her parents' lives. Though her memory was blurry, she only recalled an instinctive fear of witches. Yasu, in turn, revealed that she had been through something similar when a hero drove her away from her homeland. She had lost her family, with only Dori remaining by her side. Lily then apologized for how she had treated Yasu and expressed gratitude for her help earlier. She acknowledged that Yasu was not a bad witch. Yasu hesitantly asked if they could become friends. Lily smiled, admitting that it might be difficult since she still had much to learn about her. However, she hoped they could get to know each other better from now on. They then wondered how they would transport the Leviathan to the cooking competition. Just then, Wyvern regained consciousness, and Lily checked on his condition. Instead of answering, Wyvern urged them to look behind him. The girls were stunned to see a flock of adult wyverns soaring in the sky. Back at the competition, the judges had finished sampling Kasrina's dishes and were waiting for Team Mina's. However, their cooking station remained empty, with no ingredients in sight. Fidus and Sui appeared uneasy as they watched. Kasrina reminded Himuro Kayuji that time was running out, warning him that he would be disqualified if he didn't act soon. As she pondered his plan, a massive shadow suddenly loomed over the arena. Everyone was startled by something above them. Dora, who had been hiding in Himuro Kayuji's shirt pocket, emerged and told him to look up. The judges, Kasrina, and the host all turned their gazes skyward. Lily, Yasu, and Wyvern had arrived, accompanied by a group of adult wyverns carrying the much-needed ingredients. The spectators were filled with both awe and fear at the sight of the wyverns. Lily announced that they belonged to Team Mina, and the wyverns descended, delivering the ingredients. The host was astonished that Team Mina had enlisted wyverns to transport their supplies. Himuro Kayuji immediately rushed toward Lily, embracing her tightly. He was relieved that she was safe. Lily blushed and reminded him that she had promised to bring the ingredients. She then unwrapped the package, revealing a frozen Leviathan. Lily explained that Yasu had frozen the beast, and Himuro Kayuji expressed his gratitude. The Leviathan was promptly defrosted. Yasu added that Wyvern had convinced the adult wyverns to assist. Just then, Jack spoke up, mentioning that they had brought even more ingredients. Himuro Kayuji turned to thank him but hesitated when he saw an unfamiliar figure. Lily clarified that it was still Jack. She then dragged the evolved Jack away, allowing Himuro Kayuji to concentrate on cooking. Kasrina was impressed that they had managed to hunt a Leviathan. However, she questioned whether Himuro Kayuji could prepare anything in the little time remaining. Himuro Kayuji simply smiled, surprising Kasrina with his composure. He was well aware of Kasrina's exceptional cooking abilities, and this was his and Mina's first attempt at preparing Leviathan meat. However, he had a special strategy prepared for this round. The crowd erupted in cheers, supporting Himuro Kayuji and Mina. Himuro Kayuji began working on the Leviathan's meat, finding its elasticity difficult to slice. Still, he persisted and soon discovered that its texture was similar to an eel's. It had soft, radiant white flesh. After removing the skin, he carefully cut the meat into thin slices and skewered them. The host speculated that Himuro Kayuji was making kebabs. Himuro Kayuji then explained that he would be basting the meat with sauce and flame broiling it. As he focused on the Leviathan dish, Mina handled the other ingredients. She transformed a freshly caught fish into sashimi. Next, she cut an octopus that Jack had brought, extracting some sacks from it. The host noted that Mina appeared to be utilizing edible squid eggs. She then grabbed a clam monster and, with a precise strike, cracked it open. The host was astounded by her technique. She also demonstrated her skill by opening multiple clams at once by pulling the tendons at the back. Mina continued slicing the clam meat, and the host noticed something unusual. She was cutting everything to a uniform size. Mina explained that they were preparing the ingredients in bite-sized portions. The surprises didn't stop there. Mina then retrieved a killer plant and ground it down, explaining that it would be used as a pungent, spicy seasoning. However, both she and the host suffered a stinging sensation in their eyes. Realizing how little time remained, Mina called out to Himuro Kyuji, telling him that everything was ready on her end. Himuro Kyuji then told her to switch. With only a few minutes left, the host anxiously wondered what Team Mina could possibly prepare in such a short time. Meanwhile, the audience continued to cheer them on. Himuro Kyuji concentrated on chopping the mushrooms and vegetables. After that, he set up a sushi base and carefully placed the bite-sized meat and edible eggs Mina had prepared. Observing Himuro Kyuji's dedication to his cooking, Kasarina was at a loss for words and appeared impressed. Meanwhile, Mina opened their special sauce, dipped the Leviathan meat into it, and placed it back onto the grill. She began fanning the flames, causing smoke to spread across the cooking area, making the audience and judges crave the food. She brushed more sauce onto the white meat, fanned the flames again, and kept repeating the process. To everyone's surprise, Kasarina started drooling but quickly covered her mouth. However, she couldn't prevent her stomach from growling, feeling embarrassed that the aroma alone had made her hungry. The host noticed and smirked. Kasarina glared at her, warning that she hadn't heard anything. Just then, Himuro Kyuji accidentally cut his hand, causing concern among everyone. He was worried because there wasn't much time left, and he lacked any flashy skills to show off. He only needed to complete a few final touches. Out of nowhere, Himuro Kyuji heard a da sound. Turning around, he saw his friends cheering him on. Lily even threatened to punch him if he dared to give up. Fidus and Yisu also encouraged him to keep going. Surprisingly, Sui clearly spoke words for the first time, calling Himuro Kyuji her daddy and asking him not to stop. Everyone was astonished that Sui could suddenly talk. Himuro Kyuji was left stunned. At that moment, Mina tossed a roll of bandages to him, and he caught it smoothly without looking, thanking her. He reminded himself that his companions had all fulfilled their roles as expected. Because of that, he couldn't afford to quit. Determined, Himuro Kyuji continued making the sushi rolls while Kasarina watched with an uneasy expression. Himuro Kyuji wanted to win for his daughter. As the final minute approached, the host questioned whether Team Mina would finish in time. The audience kept cheering for them as the countdown ended. The host then requested that the contestants serve their dishes. Himuro Kyuji stepped forward carrying a food tray, introducing a dish from his homeland sushi as an appetizer. He instructed the judges to use the accompanying sauce, as they had likely never encountered this type of dish before. As they dipped the sushi into the sauce and tasted it, they began to praise the flavors, texture, and balance between the seafood and plant-based monster ingredients. Hearing the positive remarks, Himuro Kyuji was pleased that both the seafood and the creatures he had raised were being acknowledged. Mina then brought a tray of drinks, offering the judges something to cleanse their palates. One judge asked about the green liquid, and Himuro Kyuji explained that it was made by boiling and then drying the widow leaf monster. Despite concerns that widow leaf was typically considered useless, the judges decided to try it. The elder judge found the green tea comforting and was surprised that widow leaf could be utilized this way. The other judges also enjoyed its pleasant aroma. Even the spectators reacted with astonishment. The judges continued tasting the remaining sushi rolls and realized their sense of taste felt refreshed. The elder judge then stared intently at the tea made from widow leaf. Himuro Kyuji returned, presenting the main dish inside a small box, which puzzled the elder judge. The audience grew uneasy, seeing such a tiny container as the highlight of the meal. Meanwhile, Kasarina smirked silently. Himuro Kyuji then instructed the judges to lift the lid. Inside was the flame-broiled leviathan, served on a bed of steamed wheat, which he called the levia box. The aroma alone heightened the judges' hunger. As they took a bite, silence fell over them. The audience observed as the judges ate without speaking, looking as if they had been deprived of food for days. Himuro Kyuji then suggested they try modifying the flavor. The judges paused, looking perplexed. He instructed them to transfer the contents of the box into a bowl, mix in the killer plant and yellow plant condiments, and finally, pour in some tea. This process transformed it into a dish called hitsumabushi. Hitsumabushi is a specialty from Nagoya that consists of steamed rice, barbecue grilled eel, a thick sweet savory sauce, and various garnishes and condiments. Himuro Kyuji hoped the judges would appreciate the flavor change. As they tried the new version, they were astonished by how dramatically the taste had shifted, making it feel like an entirely new dish. In the end, every plate was emptied, and the senior judge declared that the meal was exceptional. The taste testing had concluded, and everyone eagerly awaited the final decision. The first judge cast her vote in favor of Kasarina. The second judge sided with Team Mina. The third judge also chose Team Mina. The fourth judge, who looked nervous, voted for Kasarina. This unexpected situation meant that the final vote would determine the winner. The senior judge finally spoke and, in a calm tone, announced that the grand cooking champion was Team Mina. Kasarina was left in shock as the host declared that this year's winner was Mina Restaurant, a first-time participant. The crowd erupted in cheers for their victory. However, Lily noticed Kasarina's grim expression. Kasarina approached the gourmet master, demanding an explanation. Before responding to her, the elder judge turned to Himuro Kyuji and asked about the sauce he had used. Himuro Kyuji explained that it was soy sauce, created from ripened red plant and wheaten with salt. Being a fermented seasoning, soy sauce enhanced a variety of ingredients and maintained its depth of flavor whether sweetness or spiciness was added. He admitted he had been using it since the very first round. The elder judge remarked that the Levia box meal was already outstanding, but what made it truly remarkable was how the rich sauce elevated its taste. Kasrina sampled the soy sauce and acknowledged that it provided a distinctive seasoning. However, she found it hard to believe that a single ingredient could enhance her dishes so significantly. The elder judge acknowledged that Kasrina's cooking was unrivaled, but he pointed out one flaw, the lingering aftertaste of seafood. He explained that Team Mina cleverly used tea to cleanse the palate, allowing each dish to be enjoyed more fully and even transforming flavors into something entirely new. Despite his years of experience, this was the first time he had witnessed tea being used in such a manner. He praised Team Mina for their innovative approach and their consideration for the dining experience. Kasrina sighed, realizing that she had focused only on perfecting her cooking techniques while neglecting the experience of the diners. Having reigned as champion for so long, she had become fixated on her culinary abilities and overlooked one of the competition's main purposes, introducing new dining experiences. She turned to Team Mina, gracefully conceding defeat and offering her congratulations. Himuro Kyuji's friends erupted in cheers from the spectator seats. Kasrina then handed the World Tree Gem to Himuro Kyuji, catching him off guard. He accepted it with gratitude, thanking her sincerely. The others hurried over to Himuro Kyuji and Mina, embracing them in celebration. Himuro Kyuji expressed his gratitude to everyone, as they had successfully acquired one of the World Tree seeds. A month after the cooking competition, Himuro Kyuji and Sui found themselves drooling over a mouth-watering dish. Dora explained that chefs from across the globe had gathered in the area. Himuro Kyuji was amazed by the sheer size of the location, especially considering they were on a ship. The three of them stood in awe as they admired the food court aboard the vessel. At that moment, Jack called them over and pointed out some eye-catching items. Himuro Kyuji was captivated by each dish he saw. Even though Himuro Kyuji and Sui were eager to taste the food, Himuro Kyuji reminded Sui that they had a lunch reservation. Jack was disappointed that Lily couldn't accompany them. Himuro Kyuji suggested that Jack let her rest since she was still recovering. The group decided to explore further and made their way to the ship's deck. Jack was surprised to see unusual creatures leaping across the ocean's surface. Suddenly, Kasrina appeared and explained that they were simmer men, which were supposedly delicious when fried like tempura. She mentioned that she got tired of waiting and decided to come and get them. Kasrina then asked if they had any difficulties boarding the ship. Himuro Kyuji reassured her that everything went smoothly and thanked her for arranging a boat just for them. Kasrina dismissed it, saying she had already scheduled one for Netsak. Himuro Kyuji was impressed that Kasrina personally owned such a luxurious vessel. Kasrina boasted about its impressive speed, but noted that this was actually her smallest ship. Leading them through the ship's dining hall, Kasrina encouraged the group to explore new cuisines they had yet to experience as chefs. Soon, they encountered the ship's captain, who was surprised to see Kasrina wandering about. Kasrina introduced Himuro Kyuji as her guest, and the captain assumed he was the famous monster cultivator, jokingly offering to accept monsters as payment. After exchanging pleasantries, Kasrina then guided the group to lunch. They were treated to an extravagant seafood feast, leaving Himuro Kyuji in awe. Kasrina mentioned that she had made sure to put in her best effort to prepare the meal. Himuro Kyuji eagerly tasted the fish and found it incredibly flavorful. Kasrina looked satisfied, attributing the dish's excellence to Himuro Kyuji's soy sauce. Himuro Kyuji then tried a wine-braised clam served alongside flatbread made from red corn, which was originally a boiled monster. This combination resulted in a seafood taco that he thoroughly enjoyed. Kasrina explained that this method allowed for variety when someone grew tired of heavily seasoned dishes. During their meal, Himuro Kyuji suddenly realized that boiled fish might pair well with strawberries. Dora was skeptical, but Himuro Kyuji insisted that it would taste great. Kasrina was impressed by Himuro Kyuji's creative thinking and was glad she had decided to travel with him, although Himuro Kyuji disagreed. Later, Kasrina mentioned that she had experimented with various salts, alcohols, and monster fluids in her cooking, but had never fully understood the effort required to make condiments until she tried producing soy sauce. Himuro Kyuji complimented her for managing to recreate soy sauce in such a short time. Kasrina proudly revealed that she had discovered a way to accelerate the fermentation process and was pleased with her reputation as a gourmet noble. Himuro Kyuji was curious about her technique, but Kasrina refused to share her secret. After their meal, Sui became excited and jumped onto Himuro Kyuji's lap. Dora was startled and lost her balance. Himuro Kyuji gently scolded Sui, reminding her that she had frightened Dora. Sui then noticed Dora and glanced around before offering her a treat as an apology, which Dora happily accepted. Himuro Kyuji smiled as he watched the adorable moment unfold. Kasrina then suggested they relax until they reached Netsak. Everyone continued exploring the ship until they returned to the room where the World Tree Gem was safely stored. Kasrina found it hard to believe that such a seed could serve as a pillar supporting the world. Himuro Kyuji worried about whether he would be able to obtain the World Tree Seed from Netsak. Kasrina explained that Netsak was ruled by the heroic Emperor Rostam. She recalled that Rostam had spoken highly of Himuro Kyuji during their previous meeting and hoped he would at least be willing to listen to another hero like herself. However, she encouraged Himuro Kyuji to figure out a way to earn Rostam's trust on his own. Himuro Kyuji already understood that only 4 world trees remained before the world would collapse. Since he was the only person capable of growing the seeds, he was determined not to give up. Once he succeeded in preventing the world's destruction, he could return to enjoying his peaceful life as a farmer. Kasrina then declared that she had a responsibility to support Himuro Kyoji, as she felt guilty for cutting down a world tree. She told him to use her help however he needed, promising to follow him until the end. Himuro Kyoji accepted and assumed that Kasrina would gain more culinary inspiration from traveling alongside him. Sui then tugged on his hand and eagerly offered her help as well. Dora, Wyvern, and Jack quickly joined in, all expressing their willingness to assist Himuro Kyoji. He smiled and thanked them. Meanwhile, the ship's captain suddenly sensed a shift in the rip current. He scanned the horizon and noticed something rising from the ocean's surface. In the blink of an eye, the ship trembled violently, taking Himuro Kyoji and the others by surprise. Everyone struggled to steady themselves after the sudden shake, and Kasrina immediately asked what had just happened. The door swung open, and Lily entered the room to check on them. The group quickly decided to find the captain and soon discovered the ship's crew rushing around frantically. Kasrina demanded an explanation, and the captain warned that they had encountered something troublesome. Pressing for details, she listened as the captain explained that they were maneuvering to avoid a whirlpool. Everyone was stunned when they finally saw the massive whirlpool up ahead, and the captain swiftly steered the ship hard to starboard. The vessel narrowly avoided disaster. Himuro Kyoji fixed his gaze on the whirlpool and then turned to Lily, asking if she noticed anything inside it. Since Lily didn't see anything unusual, Himuro Kyoji assumed that it must have been his imagination. The captain let out a sigh of relief, prompting Kasrina to ask what had happened. He explained that the whirlpools first appeared 6 months ago and were unusual since they weren't caused by tidal shifts. Rumors circulated that several cargo ships had been wrecked recently. At that moment, Jack spotted the continent of Netzach, and everyone marveled at the sight of the new land they were about to explore. Kasrina proposed heading straight to the capital once they reached the shore. While traveling through Netzach's desert, their carriage was pulled by monsters known as desert horses. Himuro Kyoji found it remarkable that some monsters could be trained to obey humans. Kasrina elaborated that many monsters were harmless when properly domesticated. However, since they couldn't be bred, they had to capture new ones from time to time. Feeling the stark contrast in climate from the cheesed continent, Himuro Kyoji noted the heat. Kasrina stated that Netzach was the hottest continent, primarily covered in deserts. Even so, numerous indigenous monsters thrived there, making life sustainable. Hearing this, Himuro Kyoji became eager, wondering if he could raise some himself. Kasrina then pointed out a group of cactoballs resting nearby. These creatures stored large amounts of liquid inside their bodies, making them crucial for survival in the desert. She continued listing other local monsters, including killer scorpions, sand moles, and catapulpas. She also mentioned that the basilisk, which a group of adventurers was currently battling, was considered a delicacy. Kasrina gave the basilisk a sharp glare, momentarily entertaining the idea of hunting it herself. Sensing her intent, the creature immediately fled. Kasrina commented that while surviving in such a harsh environment was challenging, the monsters here had evolved significantly. Just as Kasrina was about to recommend something, the carriage abruptly halted, causing everyone to collide into each other. Lily, flustered, told Himuro Kyoji to get off her since he had accidentally pinned her down. He quickly apologized, and although Lily was embarrassed, she assured him it was fine. Jack, however, took the opportunity to tease them. The coachman checked on the passengers, apologizing and explaining that monsters had suddenly appeared on the road. Everyone stepped out to investigate, and Kasrina's eyes lit up with excitement. She announced that the creatures were desert jellyfish, one of her top recommendations. Kasrina extended her scabbard toward one of the creatures, allowing it to latch on. With a powerful pull, she dragged the main body out from beneath the sand. She detailed the method for capturing them and encouraged Himuro Kyoji to try. He declined, but Kasrina insisted they couldn't continue unless they caught a few. She elaborated that desert jellyfish were rich in collagen, which improved skin tone and were rumored to be excellent for health and beauty. Upon hearing this, Lily became enthusiastic and proposed they gather as many as possible. Everyone excitedly joined in, especially Lily. Himuro Kyoji managed to capture one and felt a sense of accomplishment. Kasrina noted that the jellyfish should have been buried deeper, blaming Himuro Kyoji's blessing for drawing them out. With their carriage now filled with desert jellyfish, they resumed their journey. Lily, delighted as a woman, was thrilled about the skincare benefits they offered. Kasrina further explained that the creatures could be boiled, grilled, or dried for use in different dishes. While handling the jellyfish's squishy texture, Himuro Kyoji had a sudden realization. At that moment, the coachman announced their arrival at the capital. The city was renowned for its impenetrable high walls. As they entered through the gates, Himuro Kyoji was astonished by the vastness of the capital. However, he also noticed worn-down buildings and people with gloomy expressions. Kasrina remarked that things might have changed in the Netzach Empire's capital, given the sparse population and visible ruins. After disembarking, Lily asked about their next steps. Himuro Kyoji expressed his desire to meet the emperor immediately, but Kasrina cautioned that it wouldn't be easy and suggested they head to their lodgings first. That night, Lily was admiring the night sky when Himuro Kyoji approached her. She pointed out that he should be getting some rest. Instead, he revealed a dish he had prepared in the hotel's kitchen. Curious, Lily asked what it was. Himuro Kyoji explained that it was the desert jellyfish they had caught earlier. She questioned why they had turned transparent. He clarified that after boiling them, they became translucent, and he had chilled them before adding a syrup made from sugar and honey beets. Lily took a bite and enjoyed the texture and taste. Himuro Kyoji added that the tentacles had medicinal properties, and their extract was beneficial for the skin. Lily suddenly set down her spoon and fell silent. After a brief pause, she thanked Himuro Kyoji and apologized for feeling distant since the tournament ended, admitting she had been a burden. Confused, Himuro Kayuji reassured her that their victory was thanks to her contributions. Lily explained that she had recovered due to the time she had taken to rest. Leaning on the balcony, she vowed to protect him from anyone who tried to stand in his way. She reminded him that she was his partner, after all. Himuro Kayuji smiled in agreement, and they sealed their bond with a fist bump. The following morning, Himuro Kayuji was fast asleep until someone entered his room. He was being prodded awake with a sword scabbard, and as he groggily sat up, the intruder jabbed him harder. When he finally opened his eyes, he was met with a sight of two armored melons standing before him. They introduced themselves as EST, the captain of the Royal Knights serving the heroic Emperor Rostam. Himuro Kayuji fell silent, still fixated on the two melons in front of him. The dark-skinned beauty, Captain EST, declared that by the Emperor's orders, Himuro Kayuji would be placed under her custody. Before long, Himuro Kayuji found himself walking through the halls of the Imperial Castle. Jack had discreetly suggested acting as a decoy to help him escape, but Himuro Kayuji reminded him they had arrived on peaceful terms. However, he was caught off guard when he saw Lily crying. She was devastated that she had failed to protect him so soon after making her promise. Himuro Kayuji reassured her, reminding her to stay calm since they were merely going to meet the Emperor. Soon, they reached the throne room, and EST announced their arrival. The Emperor welcomed them warmly, introducing himself as Rostam, the ruler of Netsak and one of the 6 great heroes. His commanding presence made Himuro Kayuji nervous. As he attempted to introduce himself, Kasrina casually greeted Rostam and expressed her happiness in seeing him in good health since their last encounter. Himuro Kayuji was taken aback by how casually Kasrina interacted with the Emperor. Rostam was also pleased to see her safe, as they had not heard from her since the cooking tournament. He could tell that Kasrina had been captivated by the rumored monster rancher. Kasrina let out a sigh, implying that Rostam should have already known about her situation. She then gazed at Himuro Kayuji and admitted that it wasn't unreasonable to say she had been drawn in. Suddenly, Rostam's expression darkened as he glared at Himuro Kayuji, causing him to flinch in alarm. Himuro Kayuji panicked and begged Kasrina not to make him look bad. Rostam chuckled and reassured him to relax, clarifying that he only wanted to talk. Himuro Kayuji couldn't help but wonder why. Rostam then inquired if he was truly capable of cultivating monsters, to which Himuro Kayuji confirmed. Rostam then silently observed him, and Kayuji noticed a hint of sorrow in his gaze. Rostam then requested Himuro Kayuji to accompany him. Inside a room, a young girl was struggling to breathe. Himuro Kayuji froze and immediately asked about her identity. Rostam introduced her as his younger sister, Lean. Himuro Kayuji questioned if she was ill. Rostam explained that she had been afflicted with an incurable disease since birth, and her condition had recently worsened, leaving her bedridden. With little time remaining, Rostam pleaded with Himuro Kayuji to save her. Himuro Kayuji was stunned and blurted out that he wasn't a doctor. Rostam, however, was insistent, claiming that Himuro Kayuji had the ability to produce a monster capable of curing his sister's illness. Himuro Kayuji was taken aback, as he had never considered growing a monster for medicinal purposes. At that moment, Lily stepped in, reminding Himuro Kayuji that he wasn't obligated to obey an emperor or hero. She also pointed out that if they succeeded in cultivating a monster with healing properties, Rostam would be the one profiting from it. Himuro Kayuji admired Lily's composure in the face of a hero. Rostam smiled and proceeded to explain further. He revealed that he had already sought out medicines from all over the world and consulted renowned doctors. While they were able to provide temporary relief for Lean, a permanent cure remained out of reach. He even admitted that it was a miracle she had survived this long. Himuro Kayuji and Lily exchanged silent glances. Himuro Kayuji then wondered if there truly existed a monster capable of curing Lean. Rostam then sternly declared that if Himuro Kayuji failed, he would seize his all-purpose medicine. Himuro Kayuji was startled, realizing exactly what he meant. Rostam had already heard of the rumors. He had obtained multiple mandragoras before, though most were fakes. However, Lean had managed to survive this long due to a single authentic mandragora, and Rostam believed the same result could be replicated. He warned that if Himuro Kayuji failed to cultivate a monster that could heal his sister, he would take his mandragora instead. Himuro Kayuji protested, acknowledging Rostam's desperation but insisting that Dora was also a part of his family. Rostam found it odd that Himuro Kayuji considered a mandragora as family, believing it was just a monster. Sensing Dora's distress, Kayuji held her close and remained silent for a moment. He then shot a glare at Rostam and firmly declared that he would raise and cultivate a monster that could heal Lean. Rostam assured them that they would be protected during their stay, but they would not be allowed to leave the country until his sister was cured. After the discussion, Himuro Kayuji and the others walked away under escort, with Himuro Kayuji holding Dora to comfort her. Lily was stunned that the situation was far worse than she had imagined. Himuro Kayuji admitted that he had no other choice. He had already seen someone suffering and refused to sacrifice Dora. Additionally, they still needed to obtain the Jewel of Life for the World Tree. However, Lily was concerned about the restriction that prevented them from leaving or communicating with the outside world. Jack then reminded Himuro Kayuji about Fidus and Yasu. Their escort confirmed that letters could be sent, but each one would be inspected beforehand. Shortly after, they arrived at their designated rooms, which turned out to be incredibly lavish. Himuro Kayuji was taken aback and questioned if they were truly allowed to use such extravagant accommodations. The escort confirmed that the entire floor was reserved for them. Naturally, Himuro Kayuji was shocked. Meanwhile, Kasarina was escorted to her own room. She asked EST if she had the same restrictions as Himuro Kayuji. EST clarified that as long as she didn't interfere with the Emperor's affairs, she was free to come and go as she pleased. Sui and Vern enjoyed lying on the soft bed, and Himuro Kayuji felt envious of how carefree they seemed. As he unpacked his belongings, the escort suddenly became alarmed. Himuro Kayuji quickly reassured him that they were simply his tools. However, the escort's eyes locked onto Dora, and he began drooling. Furious, Himuro Kayuji hugged Dora protectively. The escort apologized, and then curiously asked how Himuro Kayuji planned to grow a mandragora through cutting. Himuro Kayuji explained that unlike dryads, which could be grown that way, mandragoras needed to be cultivated from seeds. Himuro Kayuji then questioned whether the escort was going to leave now that his job was done. The escort reminded them that Captain EST would begin monitoring them the following day before finally departing. Lily was irritated that they were being kept under surveillance under the pretense of an escort. Suddenly, Dora tearfully offered herself to be eaten for Himuro Kayuji's sake. Himuro Kayuji quickly reassured her, promising that would never happen. Despite his confidence, Himuro Kayuji couldn't help but wonder if he would be able to grow anything in the desert. The next day, his concern deepened when he stood in front of the barren, arid land. As Kasarina pondered how to begin, Himuro Kayuji retrieved the seeds of the monsters he had cultivated and cheesed. Kasarina was impressed by how well prepared he was. Himuro Kayuji felt a sense of pride in his profession, though he was slightly annoyed by how relaxed Kasarina looked while observing him. Choosing to ignore her, he examined the soil. The earth was completely dry, making it clear that nothing could grow in it as it was. Realizing he had to take a different approach first, he decided on his next course of action, and Lily volunteered to assist him. They grabbed some hoes and began plowing the land. Himuro Kayuji then turned to EST and requested her to water the field. EST objected, demanding to know why she had to do it. Himuro Kayuji reminded her that his monster companions had been detained. Left with no alternative, EST reluctantly agreed. The labor was strenuous for Himuro Kayuji, and Lily felt the scorching heat of the relentless sun. EST followed through, watering the plowed earth. Meanwhile, Kasarina appeared to be on a vacation. As Himuro Kayuji and Lily continued working hard to prepare the land, Kasarina casually approached them and offered them drinks. Not long after, Himuro Kayuji took out barrels of compost and requested additional assistance from EST. As the farmland gradually formed, he guided Lily on planting the seeds, and the two worked quietly. In a short time, Himuro Kayuji transformed the once barren land into an expansive field. Kasarina then questioned why he had put garbage into the soil. He clarified that it was compost, which helped enrich the earth. She then spotted a separate container, and Himuro Kayuji explained that the process took around 2 to 3 months to complete. Kasarina was surprised that something like that existed. Himuro Kayuji then reminded everyone that they needed to work even harder the next day. Lily agreed, stating they should take things at a steady pace. EST, however, was stunned that another round of labor awaited them. Himuro Kayuji expressed his gratitude for her help. Kasarina then suggested having desert jelly for dinner as a reward for their efforts. That evening, everyone gathered for a meal, and Himuro Kayuji couldn't get over how fresh and crispy Saren's cooking was. Lily took a bite and found the combination of fried rice and desert jellyfish to pair wonderfully with soy sauce. Kasarina then handed her sunscreen, which was made from a mix of cactus extract and desert jellyfish. She also brought out desert jellyfish ice cream, created by blending sweet and seasoned jellyfish with sheep's milk and a bit of ice magic. Both Himuro Kayuji and Lily enjoyed the delightful sweetness of the treat. However, despite the delicious food, Himuro Kayuji was still uncertain whether monster plants could thrive in Netsak's soil. The following day, his fears were confirmed when he discovered that nothing had sprouted from the soil they had tilled the day before. It seemed like they might never leave the castle after all. A few days later, Himuro Kayuji informed EST that he wanted to gather and analyze the seeds of local species. EST was taken aback and called him reckless, reminding him of his repeated failures in the past few days. Himuro Kayuji declared that it was impossible to grow anything in the current field. He pointed out that he had successfully cultivated monsters and cheesed, and just needed to find species that could flourish in Netsak. EST then reminded him that leaving the castle would require facing monsters in battle. Determined, Himuro Kayuji firmly requested permission to go outside. However, EST suspected that he was merely trying to escape. Lily then proposed that she should go instead while Himuro Kayuji remained inside the castle grounds. Himuro Kayuji agreed to this plan, but EST refused. After some debate, EST finally permitted him to leave, provided that she accompanied him. Kayuji then requested that Jack come along since he often served as his assistant. He also asked Kasarina, but she declined, preferring to keep watch over the field. Before long, Lily subdued monsters while Jack observed with curiosity. EST explained that the creatures were desert mushrooms, which could be used to make a delicious mixed monster salad. Lily then inspected the monster's body and discovered a jewel. EST led them to a nearby oasis. Lily became excited upon seeing the water, but EST stopped her and suggested she take a closer look. Near the water's edge, desert geckos were drinking. Lily wanted to attack them immediately, but EST cautioned her that the geckos had sharp hearing and were incredibly quick. Any noise from their armor would alert them instantly. She suggested they remain patient and observe. Suddenly, a killer scorpion emerged from the sand and ambushed the geckos. Lily worried they wouldn't be able to obtain the seeds if the geckos were wiped out. EST reassured her, explaining that the killer scorpion first poisoned its prey before dragging it to its burrow. While the scorpion was occupied with its captured gecko, Lily seized the opportunity to attack. She felt accomplished for taking down 2 creatures in one move. EST then mentioned that killer scorpions with stingers often carried a large number of jewels. Lily searched the scorpion's remains while Jack checked on the gecko. Seeing how much they had gathered, Lily excitedly encouraged them to keep up the pace. Shortly after, they were ambushed by dung beetles. Jack used fire magic to counter the dung projectiles fired by the beetles. Then, a massive sand golem emerged. Lily swiftly cut it down until only smaller fragments remained. With Jack's assistance, she finished off the sand golem and secured another jewel. They also hunted a basilisk and retrieved its jewel. Afterward, they took a brief rest, and Jack rehydrated himself. The three continued their journey until they came across a massive burrow, where slimy tentacles suddenly surfaced from the ground. EST quickly took them down. As they traveled further, EST commented that Lily was unusual for willingly staying by Himuro Kayuji's side. She found it odd that someone would choose to work alongside monsters, considering they were traditionally seen as enemies. Lily, however, found that perspective strange as well. She believed that coexisting with monsters could be beneficial for everyone. EST admitted that she somewhat understood, but still found it hard to accept the idea of working with monsters. She also noted that Lily was an adventurer who made a living by defeating them. Lily acknowledged that such requests existed, but explained that she tried to avoid them, as she preferred not to kill monsters without a valid reason. EST was puzzled and once again called Lily strange. Jack agreed with her. Jack then noticed the weight of their bag, and EST suggested they head back. However, as she took a step forward, she accidentally triggered a trap, and tentacles ensnared her. A monster emerged from the sand, seemingly enjoying Est's predicament. Jack and Lily casually remarked that it was Est's fault for being careless. Irritated by their lack of assistance, EST attempted to cut the tentacles herself. However, she ended up losing her footing and plummeted from a great height. Jack scolded her for being careless. Realizing her mistake, EST braced herself for the impact, but Jack managed to catch her and immediately reprimanded her for not paying attention. As the two bickered, Lily took on the monster. Once Jack put EST down, Lily asked what kind of creature it was. EST identified it as a watermelon monster, common in Netzach. However, she was surprised to see one so close to the castle and noted that this one had evolved from a rank E to a rank C monster. EST attempted to assist, but Jack stopped her. Lily expertly dodged the creature's tentacles and took to the air. Using the sun to blind the monster, she swung her sword and sliced it in half with a single strike. EST was stunned by the display, while Jack hurried over to check on Lily. She was amazed that someone could defeat a C-ranked monster in one blow and realized her mistake in underestimating her opponent. Meanwhile, back at the castle, Himuro Kayuji was deeply preoccupied with figuring out how to cultivate a healing monster in such a harsh environment. Just then, Sui, Vern, and Dora unexpectedly appeared, shocking Himuro Kayuji that they had managed to leave their room. He warned the two children not to stray too far while playing. Dora then inquired whether Himuro Kayuji was still looking for cultivation techniques, to which he confirmed, explaining that the seeds he had brought weren't sprouting in the desert. Himuro Kayuji then requested Dora to share one of her seeds with him. Dora agreed but mentioned that it would take about a month to teach him how to properly grow it. Himuro Kayuji felt frustrated, realizing that even if he obtained the seed, he wouldn't be able to cultivate it on his own. He recalled a TV program where plants that normally wouldn't survive in deserts were flourishing. His mention of Earth left Dora confused. At that moment, Himuro Kayuji and Dora encountered a guard in the hallway. Upon seeing Dora, the guard immediately identified Himuro Kayuji as the monster farmer whom the Emperor had been keeping hidden. He assured Himuro Kayuji that no one would stop him if he wanted to run away and encouraged him to do so if he ever felt isolated. Not wanting to speak openly in front of the Emperor, the guard quickly excused himself. This made Himuro Kayuji uneasy, fearing he might be executed if he failed to find a cure. He also began to suspect that the Emperor's sister's illness was not as simple as it seemed. While lost in thought, he heard a voice from the other side of a door. The voice asked if someone was there, prompting Himuro Kayuji to open the door. Inside, he found Lin, who was now awake and appeared to be in good health. Seeing her startled Himuro Kayuji, as she looked quite different from Rostam. Lin acknowledged that she was not like her brother and asked if Himuro Kayuji was one of the new physicians. He clarified that he was a monster cultivator, assigned to raise a monster that could cure her condition. Lin questioned whether such a thing was truly possible. Himuro Kayuji observed that she did not seem frightened by the mention of monsters. Lin admitted that although she had read about them, she had never encountered one in person. Curious to learn more, she invited Himuro Kayuji inside, and he entered without hesitation, noting the tall bookshelf in the room. Lin then asked how Himuro Kayuji was able to cultivate monsters. He recounted his journey, beginning with raising killer plants and meeting Jack and Dora, who had willingly volunteered to be eaten. Along the way, he unexpectedly won a prestigious cooking tournament and even sailed the seas, where he encountered a massive whirlpool. Lin commented that his life sounded like something straight out of a storybook. Dora proudly praised her master's achievements, but suddenly realized she had revealed herself. Excited, Lin remarked that it was her first time seeing a monster, especially an all-cure mandragora like Dora. Embarrassed, Dora quickly hid, and Lin apologized, noting that Dora seemed quite shy, which Dora confirmed. As the conversation continued, Lin invited them to call her whatever they liked. However, when Himuro Kayuji hesitated due to her royal status, she suddenly experienced pain and started coughing. Concerned, Himuro Kayuji offered to fetch a doctor, but Lin reassured him that she was fine, explaining that she had simply gotten too excited. Suddenly, Sui appeared, presenting Himuro Kayuji with a mud ball. As Himuro Kayuji thanked her, Lin curiously asked about the child. He introduced Sui as his foster daughter. Lin closely examined Sui and realized that she, too, was a monster. This made Himuro Kayuji anxious, as he feared others discovering that Sui was the Demon King's child. Lin sensed that Sui was no ordinary child and wondered if she was imagining things, which only deepened Himuro Kayuji's concern over her keen intuition. Sui had also given a mud ball to Lin, and the princess was moved by the gesture. Himuro Kyuji scolded Sui for disturbing Lin while she was unwell. Sui looked sad, but Lin promised to play with her once she recovered. Suddenly, guards rushed in and began reprimanding Himuro Kyuji for bothering the sick princess. Lin attempted to explain that she had invited Himuro Kyuji to tell her stories. As Himuro Kyuji tried to excuse himself, Lin asked him to visit her again and share more stories. The guards then shut the door, leaving Himuro Kyuji and the others outside. Shortly after, Kasarina met with Himuro Kyuji and the girls. Himuro Kyuji noticed a pleasant aroma, and Kasarina explained that it was a local netsack dish that she had turned into rice porridge, believing Lin would enjoy it. Himuro Kyuji realized she had altered the original recipe. Kasarina then described the cooking process, sautéing desert onions, then boiling fermented netsack cow's milk together with its beef. She explained that the porridge was both nutritious and easy to digest, though it was still a work in progress. There was still much she could do with rice porridge. Himuro Kyuji returned to the barren fields. At first, he had worked on them because of the Emperor's order, but now he was determined to cure Lin. While deep in thought, Lily, Jack, and EST returned. Jack proudly displayed the monster seeds they had collected, bringing joy to Himuro Kyuji. Lily mentioned that a lot had happened during their absence. At that moment, Himuro Kyuji noticed a watermelon monster seed, which seemed to stir an unpleasant memory in EST. Trembling, she explained that this monster was known as the water reservoir of the desert due to its high water content. Lily then presented a fruit from the monster, and Himuro Kyuji took a bite. He immediately reacted to its extreme bitterness, making the others laugh. Although he found the taste unpleasant, he realized the fruit contained a significant amount of water. An idea suddenly struck him. Taking both the watermelon seed and a mud ball made by Sui, he realized that he might be able to cultivate something in the desert. He expressed his gratitude to Sui, and Lily guessed that he had come up with a plan. Seeking Lily's assistance, Himuro Kyuji began to restore the fields. Curious, Lily wondered if his idea would work, but Himuro Kyuji simply told her to wait and see. He wanted to use compost, but it was not ready yet. Jack confirmed that he had already finished planting the desert monster seeds. Himuro Kyuji then gave him further instructions, making Jack feel nervous. Meanwhile, from the castle, Rostam watched Himuro Kyuji and his companions working on the fields. A day later, something finally sprouted. Everyone was astonished to see greenery emerging from the soil. Lily marveled at the sight of the sprouts and asked if they had really come from the seeds they had gathered. Himuro Kyuji confirmed, listing ball cactus, watermelon, and even desert jellyfish among the plants. To their surprise, jack-o'-lanterns and killer plants had also started growing. EST was in shock, knowing that it was once thought impossible for seeds from other continents to take root in this land. Proudly, Himuro Kyuji declared that there was a way, revealing the mud ball. He explained that it was no ordinary mud ball, but something called a clay dumpling. The others questioned whether such a thing could really help monster seeds grow. Himuro Kyuji then elaborated, stating that the desert soil lacked both nutrients and moisture. However, if the seed was enclosed in a mud ball, it could retain moisture and successfully sprout. Lily was amazed by Himuro Kyuji's new technique, but he warned that it was too soon to celebrate. He emphasized that he first needed to mature the monster seeds. Himuro Kyuji then requested Est's assistance in separating the sprouts that were growing together and replanting them individually. He also had her place the extra sprouts into the manure. As EST continued working, she noticed the nearby sprouts growing at an accelerated pace, which left her astonished by Himuro Kyuji's abilities. Himuro Kyuji then asked her to help trim the plants since they were growing so fast. Meanwhile, Lily and Jack concentrated quietly on their respective tasks. Himuro Kyuji kept giving EST instructions, and she noticed how much he changed when tending to the monster plants. As the day passed, the plants matured, and Himuro Kyuji rejoiced in their success at cultivating monster plants in netsack. Dora congratulated her master, excited that they could now grow a wider variety. EST was in disbelief that monster plants from the cheesed continent were thriving in netsack soil. All of a sudden, EST gripped her sword upon realizing the monster plants were surrounding her. Jack reassured her to remain calm, explaining that the monsters cultivated by Himuro Kyuji were completely harmless. He then handed her a killer plant fruit. EST initially hesitated to accept it, but Jack insisted she give it a try. She silently took a bite and, much to her surprise, found it delicious, feeling flustered as everyone stared at her. While they were teasing EST, Rostam suddenly arrived and greeted Himuro Kyuji in a cold manner. He examined the monster plants and questioned whether Himuro Kyuji had grown anything capable of curing Lin's illness. Himuro Kyuji admitted that none of the monsters cultivated thus far had healing properties. Rostam glared at him, looking ready to attack but hesitated when Kasarina called out to him. Just then, a guard rushed over to report an incident regarding Lin. Rostam hurried to his sister's chamber and urged her to hold on. Seeing her brother's worried expression, Lin began crying before eventually drifting into sleep. Himuro Kyuji stood there, looking heartbroken as he watched the siblings. The doctor soon arrived to explain the situation, and Rostam turned to Himuro Kyuji, suggesting that they might have no choice but to rely on the all-cure Mandragora. Meanwhile, in the cheesed continent, Yisu visited Himuro Kyuji's residence, where Phytus greeted her. Yisu asked what Phytus was doing, and Phytus responded that she had just finished reading a letter from Himuro Kyuji about the Emperor's request to cultivate monster plants in netsack. Yisu expressed concern, hoping they could find a way to support Himuro Kyuji. Phytus then suggested that donuts were the best snack while working. She mixed ingredients with cooked rice to create onigiri, preserving them with magic before sending them to Himuro Kyuji and the others. At the same time, Himuro Kyuji grew increasingly uneasy about cultivating a monster plant that could cure Lin's illness, as he refused to sacrifice Dora. Dora confronted Himuro Kyoji, and he reassured her that he was actively considering other alternatives. Just then, Sui ran toward him, pointing at the sky. Himuro Kyoji noticed something approaching and was struck on the head. The peculiar ball then rolled across the ground, making strange noises as it bounced. Himuro Kyoji instantly recognized the voice coming from the ball. It was the goddess. She admitted feeling lazy and decided to visit Himuro Kyoji to pass the time. He recalled that the goddess was unable to interfere directly, and she explained that she had used a secret exit to get there. She then asked him about recent events. After Himuro Kyoji updated her on the situation, he wondered if there was a way to avoid the dilemma. The goddess confirmed that the Mandragora was the most effective cure for Lean's illness, but she believed that if Himuro Kyoji approached things differently, he could find another solution. Suddenly, Lily arrived with rice balls sent by Phytus and Yisu. Kyoji enjoyed the raspberry flavor in the onigiri and discovered additional jellies inside. The combination of raspberry and blueberry flavors excited him. It occurred to him that blending the two fruits created a new taste, blue raspberry. This revelation led Himuro Kyoji to another realization. Not long after, Himuro Kyoji presented something resembling a desert jellyfish to EST and Kasrina, but they immediately noticed that it was different. Himuro Kyoji explained that it was a byproduct of his ability, and EST deduced that he was attempting to create a new kind of monster. Kyoji expressed optimism that this new approach could be the key to saving Lean. EST then suggested simply growing a Mandragora, but Himuro Kyoji preferred to take a different route. The following morning, Rostam observed another of Himuro Kyoji's failed attempts. He demanded the Mandragora, but EST stepped in, requesting more time. Rostam begrudgingly agreed. EST questioned what had gone wrong with the monster, believing that the compost should have been sufficient and that it shouldn't have perished so soon. Himuro Kyoji had a sudden realization and sought the assistance of magicians. EST enlisted their help in preparing the compost. She knelt before Rostam and assured him of Himuro Kyoji's abilities, firmly believing that only he could save Lean. Rostam reluctantly granted Himuro Kyoji 3 more days. Not long after, Himuro Kyoji was relieved to find the compost perfectly prepared. He rushed to continue his work, determined to rescue Lean in time. Before long, the monster plant sprouted, blossomed, and tentacles began emerging. From within the flower, a young girl appeared, introducing herself as Dorage, the Mandorage. Himuro Kyoji's eyes welled up with tears of joy upon seeing the newly created monster plant. As they stared at the half-woman, half-jellyfish being in front of them, Lily wondered if she was the monster they had been waiting for. Himuro Kyoji explained that Dorage was a fusion of Mandragora and desert jellyfish, naming it a Mandorage. Lily curiously asked how he had come up with the idea of merging monsters. Himuro Kyoji revealed that the inspiration struck him while eating the rice balls Yizu had made. He had applied a technique called composite cultivation, which allowed different types of monsters to be grown together. Dora then questioned whether Dorage could be considered her younger sister. Dorage corrected her, stating that it was more accurate to call her Dora's daughter. She then casually recalled that they needed her tentacle and, without hesitation, pulled one off. Himuro Kyoji and Lily panicked, wondering if she was okay. Dorage reassured them that there was nothing to worry about since her tentacle would regenerate immediately. Kyoji quickly decided to take it to Lean at once, while Lily would inform Rostam about their discovery. However, Lily hesitated, unsure of how they should administer the tentacle to Lean. Himuro Kyoji took a bite of the tentacle and pondered their next course of action. In the kitchen, Kasrina agreed that the tentacle was too tough to eat in its current state. Wanting to assist, she quickly asked Himuro Kyoji to gather the necessary ingredients. Excited to experiment with a new monster ingredient, she first peeled the skin before slicing it into thin pieces with precision. Dorage was also present, observing as her tentacle was prepared as food. Himuro Kyoji swiftly completed his assigned tasks, finishing in no time. Kasrina then proceeded with the cooking, finishing the stir-fried devil carrots, which would add sweetness to the dish. She brought the soup to a boil before lowering the heat. After 5 minutes, the Mandorage creamy soup was ready. A concerned Rostam felt relieved when they arrived. They presented the medicinal soup and encouraged Lean to try it. She took a bite and commented on how delicious it was. Rostam checked on his sister, who murmured that she must be dreaming since she had just eaten something so tasty. Assuring her it wasn't a dream, Rostam urged Lean to eat more. She continued until she had finished everything on her plate. Feeling refreshed, Lean gratefully thanked everyone for the meal. She said her body felt light, and Rostam explained that she had eaten something Himuro Kyoji had cultivated. Lean expressed her gratitude, but Himuro Kyoji modestly replied that he had only done what he could. He reminded her that she once said she wanted to hear more of his stories and encouraged her to focus on recovering. Touched by his words, Lean called Himuro Kyoji her savior. From then on, Lean gradually improved. As a result, Rostam and the others began treating Himuro Kyoji and his group differently. For the first time since arriving in Netsak, they were able to spend their days peacefully. Initially, Himuro Kyoji had been forced into various tasks, but now he was genuinely happy that he had saved Lean. Later, he contacted the goddess, who appeared impressed. He even showcased a combination of a jack-o'-lantern and a desert watermelon. The goddess marveled at the idea, admitting that even she hadn't thought of such a cultivation method. Monsters, after all, originated from the seeds of Sephiroth, the tree of life. By breaking the natural laws of the world, Himuro Kyoji was practically like a god. Since he was developing new cultivation methods, the goddess anticipated that his skill level would continue to rise. She eagerly awaited his future discoveries. A few days later, Rostam approached Himuro Kyoji with a stern expression. As usual, Himuro Kyoji apologized immediately, but Rostam was confused and asked why he was apologizing. He explained that he actually wanted to discuss something. the two moved to the palace balcony, where Rostam requested that Himuro Kayuji find Lin a pet. Since she had been ill for a long time, she hadn't been able to make friends or interact with others. Rostam hoped Himuro Kayuji could help with this. Understanding that it was all for Lin's happiness, Himuro Kayuji agreed. Rostam then handed him a crystal taken from a desert cat, a rare monster found in the Netsak Desert. He had heard that the monsters Himuro Kayuji cultivated were safe for humans. Himuro Kayuji promised to raise a monster that could become Lin's companion. Before long, Lin was overjoyed as she embraced the desert cat. Himuro Kayuji and Lily found the sight adorable. Himuro Kayuji explained that it was a gift to celebrate Lin's recovery. For some reason, Lily appeared slightly disappointed. Lin gratefully thanked Himuro Kayuji and left with her new pet, Pachai. Lily wished for Lin to have a great time with the little desert cat, and Himuro Kayuji agreed. He also mentioned that his skill had increased, though it didn't seem to have any noticeable effects. However, after a week, Pachai had grown into an enormous, majestic, tiger-like creature. Even Himuro Kayuji was astonished and was immediately scolded by EST. Himuro Kayuji tried to deny any knowledge of the monster, but Lin calling the giant beast Pachai exposed the truth. Rostam was surprised to see that the desert cat had evolved into a desert tiger. He commented that it was a rare evolution and even praised Himuro Kayuji. Since Rostam didn't bring up any concerns, it seemed everything was fine. At that moment, Pachai suddenly put Lin's head in his mouth, causing EST to react instantly. However, Pachai was merely playing and was actually licking Lin. Himuro Kayuji assured EST that there was nothing to worry about, but the knight still found it difficult to trust monsters. Regardless, they continued watching Lin and Pachai happily playing with the other children. Himuro Kayuji reassured EST that Pachai was simply a big cat. Unexpectedly, Pachai playfully smacked 3 children, sending them flying into the water. EST and Himuro Kayuji hurried to check on them, only to find the children laughing and having fun. Lin was surprised to see that the 2 adults were watching. A while later, EST woke up after nearly drowning. Himuro Kayuji felt relieved and explained that Pachai had saved her after she sank due to the weight of her armor. EST then approached Pachai, expressed her gratitude, and apologized for doubting him. While she was preoccupied with Pachai, Lin thanked Himuro Kayuji for giving her such a wonderful companion. She knew it had been her brother's request, but she had always wanted a friend by her side. Himuro Kayuji acknowledged that Rostam had arranged everything for her and called him a good brother. Lin happily agreed and promised to take care of Pachai. Later on, Himuro Kayuji presented a seed, leaving Lily confused. She couldn't believe he had forgotten his initial reason for coming to Netsak. Himuro Kayuji assured her that there was no problem since he would receive his desired reward after successfully cultivating the seed. However, he was uncertain about how to grow a Bahamut, a creature with an SSS threat rank. On another day, everyone gathered for a meal prepared by Kasrina. As usual, Himuro Kayuji praised her cooking, but Kasrina humbly credited Dorage. She had used ingredients from the monsters Himuro Kayuji had raised and combined them with Dorage's mandorage legs. She also created a smoothie using mandorage and bitter watermelon. Additionally, she made sushi inspired by Himuro Kayuji's cooking, along with stir-fried mandorage and basilisk meat. For dessert, she prepared a dish using mandorage, Netsak cow milk, and syrup. Himuro Kayuji found every dish delicious, but grew slightly concerned for Dorage. However, Dorage reassured him that she was completely fine. Rostam then took the opportunity to compliment Kasrina's culinary skills, noting that she was truly a heroic sage. The meal continued until Lin cheerfully declared that everything was delicious. Kasrina was delighted by the praise, and Rostam reminded her not to overexert herself. He then inquired about Pachai's whereabouts, and Lin mentioned that he was eating in another room. Just as Himuro Kayuji wondered what Pachai's meal consisted of, Dorage suddenly slithered in and curiously asked if her legs had tasted good. Dorage playfully teased her master as usual, and Sui, noticing them, reached into Himuro Kayuji's bag. She pulled out the Bahamut seed, prompting Himuro Kayuji to warn her about taking things without permission. Since Sui wanted to play with it, he decided to allow her. While watching her, Himuro Kayuji began to wonder what kind of monster Bahamut truly was. Rostam mentioned that Bahamut was a mythical creature and deserved its SS rank. He also shared that he had once faced the Demon Lord, another SS-ranked being, and found that its aura was similar to that of Bahamut's crystal. After Himuro Kayuji confirmed that it was indeed a seed, Rostam arrived at his conclusion. Lily then pressured Himuro Kayuji about cultivating the monster plant. However, the seed had yet to show any reaction to him. As he stared at the seed, he recalled some important details. Monsters generally fell into 2 categories: plant-type monsters that sprouted directly from seeds and animal-type monsters that emerged from eggs growing on trees. Since Himuro Kayuji had the ability to nurture both kinds, he assumed he could cultivate Bahamut as well. However, he had no idea how to go about it. Remembering that Bahamut was a water-type monster, he began to wonder if it was similar to Leviathan. As thoughts of Leviathan crossed his mind, he unconsciously started drooling. At that moment, Sui, who had been playing with the Bahamut seed, lost her balance and tumbled into a nearby pool. Himuro Kayuji rushed to rescue her, but Lily dove into the water even faster. After a few moments, Lily resurfaced with Sui in her arms. Himuro Kayuji quickly checked on them, and Sui began to cry. Lily, though drenched, reassured him that she was fine. Kasrina then explained that the pool was meant for observing and keeping sea monsters. Lily assumed Sui had simply slipped while playing. Sui then handed the Bahamut seed back to Himuro Kayuji, and he noticed it felt somewhat slimy. Suddenly, a realization struck Himuro Kayuji, and Lily noticed the change in his expression. He firmly grasped the seed while everyone watched him curiously. Lily asked what was wrong, and Himuro Kayuji was shocked to discover that the seed had never reacted like this before. He then deduced that water was the key, but not just any water, it had to be seawater. Excitedly, he exclaimed that he had figured something out and thanked Sui, calling her his goddess of luck. Turning to Rostam, he confidently stated that he had discovered a way to cultivate Bahamut, and it might be the only method. Himuro Kayuji explained that since Bahamut was a sea monster, it needed to be grown in the ocean. Everyone was surprised by this revelation. He further elaborated that the seed had remained unresponsive until it was submerged in seawater. While Bahamut was widely known as a dragon, its origins were that of a massive fish. Judging from the reaction, a small pool would not be sufficient for its growth. Rostam asked if this meant they would have to leave the kingdom and plant the seed in the open sea. Himuro Kayuji confirmed this and firmly requested permission from Rostam. That night, as Himuro Kayuji slept, he found himself in a dream where he met the goddess. He immediately asked her what was going on. The goddess then questioned whether he had noticed how the city was in ruins and that many people were wounded when they first arrived in Netzach. She revealed that when the 6 heroes cut down Sephiroth and defeated the Demon Lord, the Demon Lord not only left behind its child, Suisun, but also sent out 4 signals to the remaining Sephiroth. In response, Sephiroth created 4 new creatures as guardians. Each one was classified as an SS-ranked Demon Lord. She continued, explaining that Bennu, one of these Demon Lords, was planning to destroy Netzach. If Himuro Kayuji failed to successfully cultivate Bahamut, the city would be doomed. With that warning, the goddess disappeared, and Himuro Kayuji awoke. Kasarina informed him that they were getting close to the harbor. As their carriage moved forward, Himuro Kayuji felt relieved that Rostam had granted them permission. Kasarina said it was all thanks to Lin, who insisted on joining them. EST, however, had to remain behind since she was the captain of the knights. Himuro Kayuji stated that Netzach would be in danger if Bahamut wasn't cultivated in time, so he was truly grateful to Lin. In response, Lin thanked him as well, expressing that she was happy to be given an important role. She didn't want to depend entirely on her brother and reminded them that she was also a princess. Himuro Kayuji assured her that he would successfully grow Bahamut and return safely. At that moment, they finally arrived at the harbor. Their carriage continued along the road, and Lin excitedly admired the sea, as it was her first time seeing it. Just then, the captain from before appeared and greeted them. He was already aware of the details from Rostam and asked where they planned to go. Himuro Kayuji requested a location with a depth of 30 meters and minimal ship traffic. The captain then shared a rumor about a shark dragon lurking in the area. He reminded Himuro Kayuji about the whirlpool they had encountered before, claiming that the same shark dragon was responsible for it. Himuro Kayuji was slightly disappointed, but explained that he needed deep waters for the Bahamut seed to activate. The captain agreed to take them wherever necessary, warning that returning to shore would take some time. As Himuro Kayuji tried to raise the group's spirits for the journey, a sudden commotion broke out among the citizens. People panicked and rushed toward the ships. Kasarina observed that the citizens seemed to sense an impending threat. Rostam had originally tasked Himuro Kayuji with cultivating Bahamut to counter an SS-ranked monster that endangered Netzach. The city's fate now rested on his ability to nurture the legendary creature. Soon after, Himuro Kayuji and Kasarina ventured underwater using pressure nullification magic, which allowed them to move freely. Kasarina explained that she required this skill for acquiring water monsters as ingredients. Himuro Kayuji then pondered the differences between land-born and sea-born monsters. Kasarina clarified that the process was essentially the same, but sea creatures hatched from eggs attached to corals. She further noted that the size of the coral determined whether the eggs would be large or small. Himuro Kayuji concluded that Bahamut's seed must require a massive coral to grow properly. He proceeded to plant the seed into the seafloor sand and decided they would check on it the following day. The next day, a coral sprouted, and Kasarina remarked that it was a species she had never seen before. Himuro Kayuji was pleased that his intuition had been correct. When they resurfaced, they eagerly shared the news with Lin, who was overjoyed to hear it. 1 week later, Himuro Kayuji and Kasarina were shocked to find that the coral had grown tremendously, and so had the egg. As a monster cultivator, it was the first time Himuro Kayuji had encountered such an enormous egg. He estimated that an SS-ranked monster would hatch within the next 2 or 3 days. Kasarina was amazed that Himuro Kayuji had the ability to cultivate even a sea monster. Just when they thought everything was going smoothly, the water's current suddenly shifted. Smaller sea monsters were being swept away, and Kasarina urged Himuro Kayuji to take cover behind a rock. Himuro Kayuji questioned if a sudden storm was approaching. Kasarina disagreed, saying the flow of water felt unnatural. As they spotted a whirlpool forming, they assumed the culprit was the shark dragon. It was the same kind of whirlpool they had encountered while traveling to Netzach. Himuro Kayuji then noticed Bahamut's eggs swaying with the strong currents. Kasarina instructed Himuro Kayuji to return to the boat while she remained behind to face the shark dragon. Himuro Kayuji was concerned for Kasarina's safety, but the brave sage began undressing. She explained that she couldn't fight properly while wearing unnecessary clothing. She reminded Himuro Kayuji that she was a hero and had promised to lend her strength to him. If she ran away now, she would be breaking her word. Himuro Kayuji took her clothes and grabbed onto the anchor's rope. He sincerely hoped Kasarina would return unharmed. Himuro Kayuji resurfaced and immediately informed the captain that the shark dragon had appeared. Meanwhile, Kasarina challenged the shark dragon to reveal itself and slashed at the massive whirlpool. A shark dragon emerged, but it was far bigger than the usual ones. Kasarina assumed it had learned to generate a whirlpool by utilizing its immense body size and speed. The shark dragon then resumed spinning, forming an even more violent whirlpool. Kasarina attempted to fight it using her sword, but the situation looked grim. She had sustained multiple wounds and was growing frustrated with the relentless whirlpool. At that moment, she recalled Himuro Kyuji's advice about moving underwater as freely as on land. She activated a spell and swiftly dodged the shark dragon's attack. She then used water pressure nullification magic on the creature. The shark dragon flinched and started moving in an uncoordinated manner. It collapsed onto the seafloor, and Kasarina asked what was wrong. The shark dragon appeared confused. Kasarina wondered why it wasn't launching an attack. Though enraged, the shark dragon attempted to attack again, but continued to move awkwardly. Kasarina realized that without water pressure, it couldn't function properly. She was relieved to confirm that the shark dragon was purely an underwater creature. She declared that this would be its final moment. The shark dragon accepted the challenge and lunged at Kasarina. She pointed her sword forward and drove it straight into the creature's head. The impact was so intense that the surrounding area was blown apart. The shark dragon was finally slain. Kasarina then checked on Bahamut's egg and noticed something alarming. She quickly resurfaced and told Himuro Kyuji that something was wrong. Himuro Kyuji immediately followed her back underwater to examine Bahamut's egg. Upon seeing a visible crack on the egg's surface, he was filled with dread. Kasarina apologized for taking too long. Himuro Kyuji felt a cold sweat and reassured her that the egg wasn't damaged. He realized that it was starting to hatch. A brilliant light suddenly radiated from the egg, blinding them underwater. Meanwhile, at Netsak Castle, fireballs rained down, launching a sudden attack. The soldiers fought back, firing at the monstrous enemy, which turned out to be an enormous, terrifying bird. It unleashed more fireballs, striking both the castle and the soldiers. The entire castle trembled, and even the emperor's chamber was affected. Rostam immediately understood that Himuro Kyuji had been right about Bennu attacking. EST questioned why the monster was focusing solely on them rather than attacking other locations. Rostam wondered if it was seeking vengeance or trying to take everything from him. He decided there was no point in speculating further and assigned specific orders to EST. Outside, the soldiers refused to surrender and continued their assault on Bennu. Both archers and magicians gave it their all, shooting arrows and casting spells at the massive bird monster. As their captain, EST commanded the troops to keep firing and maintain their momentum. However, Bennu skillfully evaded the attacks by spinning rapidly and soaring higher. As it spun, it became engulfed in flames before flying even farther. It was truly a terrifying creature. Bennu then ceased its spinning and began forming an enormous fireball. EST ordered the soldiers stationed on the right flank to retreat. Unfortunately, it was too late, and the right wing was caught in a devastating explosion. EST looked desperate as Bennu asserted its dominance. She watched in horror as it prepared another fireball, but suddenly, Lily appeared. She faced the enormous fireball and swiftly slashed it multiple times until it burst apart. Jack then commanded the Watermelon Battalion to keep Bennu occupied. Lily checked on EST, who confirmed that she was unharmed. Lily was surprised that an SS-ranked monster was smaller than she had expected. EST agreed, explaining that size wasn't always an indication of strength. Lily then declared that she would restrict Bennu's movements while Jack provided backup. A watermelon helped her leap toward Bennu. Lily attempted to stab the monster's back, but it only caused minor damage. The Bennu then ascended even higher, leaving the watermelons behind. Lily was shaken off as well, but the watermelons arrived just in time to catch her. She then requested Jack to launch another attack. Meanwhile, in the Bay Area, Dorage was distributing rice balls using her tentacles. The injured soldiers took a bite and recovered almost instantly. She insisted that everyone eat her rice balls. Dora, however, was worried about her daughter's forceful behavior. As more injured soldiers arrived, Dora offered them her petals. On the other hand, Sui was staring intently at the ceiling as if she could see something beyond it. Back on the battlefield, Bennu suddenly shifted its attention toward the soldiers. Jack quickly intervened, countering its fireball with his fire-based technique. Surprisingly, his small black flames pierced through the massive fireball and dissipated it completely. Bennu was caught off guard, but what shocked it even more was Lily emerging from the flames with a watermelon. Lily drove her weapon into Bennu's chest, delivering a severe blow. She commanded the soldiers to unleash their attacks while the wounded Bennu was falling. The troops fired relentlessly, causing Bennu to plummet like a lifeless bird. Everyone wondered if they had finally defeated it. However, as Bennu's flames crackled, its entire body started glowing. Everyone was stunned to witness the monster undergoing an evolution at such a critical moment. It generated even more fireballs, and Lily urgently ordered everyone to retreat. Suddenly, Bennu unleashed a massive barrage of fireballs, causing explosions to erupt everywhere. The force of the blast sent everyone flying, and the city was soon engulfed in flames. Lily stood up again, but Jack and the others remained unconscious. She was in disbelief that the Bennu had evolved during the battle. Normally, evolution was something that happened to weaker monsters. However, the fact that such a powerful creature could evolve in the middle of a fight was astonishing. Lily acknowledged that the Bennu was truly an SS-ranked monster. Even so, she refused to give up, as she didn't want to lose to Himuro Kyuji. She attempted to strike the Bennu, but it easily knocked her back to the ground. As she despaired at the sight of the evolved Bennu, Rostam's voice suddenly echoed, expressing gratitude to everyone for holding on. He emerged with numerous swords floating around him and told them to leave the fight to him. Rostam and the Bennu locked eyes before he launched the first attack. The Bennu retaliated by unleashing flames. Rostam's unique ability, Arma Magna, granted him full control over weapons. Lily grumbled that Rostam should have joined the battle earlier, given how powerful his ability was. Rostam explained that his technique required time to prepare, and he couldn't maintain control of his weapons indefinitely. Even as he spoke, he skillfully struck the Bennu as if it were a mere practice target. He then summoned enormous, comet-like swords that pierced straight through the Bennu's body. Though the Bennu was wounded, it managed to withstand the attacks. More shocking was its ability to regenerate from the injuries. Suddenly, a mark appeared on its body, leaving Lily in shock. It was the same mark that the one who had killed her family bore. Trembling, she recalled that tragic moment from her past. The mark grew larger, further empowering the Bennu. Overcome with fury, Lily screamed, matching the monster's roar. Sui's small voice pleaded with her to stop. Ignoring the warning, Lily pushed off the walls of nearby buildings, dodging fireballs as she charged at the Bennu. Rostam cautioned her against acting recklessly. Lily landed on the Bennu, using its feathers as footholds, and repeatedly stabbed its head in a frenzy. The Bennu shrieked in pain and crashed into a building, trying to shake her off, but Lily refused to let go. She gripped its feathers tightly and continued her relentless assault. Rostam broke into a cold sweat as he realized he was witnessing a battle between two beasts. He saw that Lily possessed strength on par with the 6 heroes and wondered about her true identity. The Bennu violently thrashed, trying to dislodge Lily. She lost her grip, and the monster prepared a devastating attack at close range, aiming to end her life. Just as Lily thought her time had come, a powerful wave of water intercepted the fireball. She opened her eyes to see Himuro Kyouji. He apologized for arriving late. Lily then realized they were airborne. Himuro Kyouji introduced her to Bahamut, a white SS-ranked monster. It had been a close call, and he was grateful that Bahamut had saved her in time. He scolded Lily for her reckless behavior, blaming it on the mark. Lily remained silent and simply asked him to defeat the Bennu. After confirming her request, Himuro Kyouji watched as Lily lost consciousness. Lean offered to care for her, and they descended. Himuro Kyouji and Bahamut then returned to the battle in the skies. Himuro Kyouji ordered the young monster to unleash its full strength. The two SS-ranked creatures clashed fiercely. The collision of scorching flames and high-pressure water created massive explosions over Netzach. The people below watched in awe as the two monsters fought in midair. Bahamut launched a series of water blasts, but the Bennu evaded them. While it was distracted, Bahamut struck it down with a powerful tail whip, sending the Bennu crashing unconscious to the ground. Suddenly, Sui appeared and defended the Bennu. She claimed that the monster had not attacked the city on purpose. Himuro Kyouji was shocked, but what stunned him even more was seeing the Bennu shed tears. The Bennu slowly stood up and weakly flapped its wings before flying away. Himuro Kyouji instructed Bahamut not to pursue it. After all, he hadn't raised Bahamut simply to destroy other monsters. Instead, he hoped that one day, he would be able to communicate with the Bennu. After the battle, everyone warmly welcomed Himuro Kyouji back. Relieved that everyone was safe, he apologized to Rostam for his late arrival. Rostam reassured him that it was all right, as reviving the great Bahamut had made a significant difference. He believed the Bennu would not return anytime soon. As both an emperor and a hero, Rostam sincerely thanked Himuro Kyouji. They shook hands, and Rostam promised to reward him with the Jewel of the Tree of Life. Himuro Kyouji then checked on Lily. She assured him that she had recovered thanks to healing magic and Doraj's rice balls. ESD mentioned that Doraj played a vital role in healing everyone, and the entire nation appreciated Himuro Kyouji for raising such incredible monsters. Himuro Kyouji was taken aback by the praise and admitted he was simply happy to raise monsters in the first place. He was even more surprised to hear EST compliment him. EST herself was surprised, but expressed relief in knowing that some monsters were not dangerous. Himuro Kyouji was pleased to hear that. Just then, Lean approached him and respectfully expressed her gratitude for saving both her life and her country. Himuro Kyouji suddenly felt flustered upon hearing Lean's heartfelt words. She then presented him with a token of appreciation. As he wondered what it was, Lean leaned in and kissed him on the cheek. Lily was in shock, unable to believe that someone was trying to steal her man right in front of her. Thankfully, it was only a kiss on the cheek. Shortly after, Himuro Kyouji woke up in bed next to an unfamiliar girl. Lily checked on him and was stunned to find the girl beside him. She immediately scolded Himuro Kyouji. As he attempted to explain, Lily continued acting like a jealous wife. The girl then giggled and reminded them that they were allies in the battle against the Bennu. Her words left both Himuro Kyouji and Lily confused. After what happened in the Netzach Empire, Himuro Kyouji and his companions traveled to the continent of Had on Bahamut's back. Since Bahamut would attract too much attention in the city, they decided to leave her waiting outside. Lily was astonished to learn that Bahamut could take on a human form. Bahamut confirmed it, saying she wished to stay with everyone. She explained that Sui had taught her how to transform. Sui looked pleased with herself as a teacher. Bahamut elaborated that SS-ranked monsters possessed a portion of the Demon Lord's power, which allowed them to shift into human form. Himuro Kyouji felt relieved that he wasn't some shameless man who had brought home a drunk woman. Jack and Vern warmly welcomed her, but Dora fell into an existential crisis upon seeing another adorable girl join them. Bahamut requested that they call her Mu instead of her monster name. Himuro Kyouji took Mu shopping to find clothes resembling her monster form, a whale shark. Lily observed that Mu appeared to enjoy her human form. Their primary objective was to gather information in Had and locate the hero of the continent. The group explored the city in search of leads. They quickly noticed that the city's condition was even worse than Netzach's, almost as if another ESD-ranked monster had devastated it. Mu suddenly hugged Himuro Kyouji, expressing her happiness about walking with him. Himuro Kyouji responded that he felt the same. However, their affectionate interaction made 3 other girls envious. Sui then acted spoiled and pulled Himuro Kyouji toward her. Mu declared that she wouldn't let Sui take Himuro Kyouji away, even if Sui was her mentor. Their lively exchange drew the attention of nearby townsfolk. An elderly man approached Himuro Kyouji, asking if they had any food to sell. Due to a decrease in monsters, food had become scarce. Himuro Kayuji exchanged glances with Lily. He then offered the man some Jacko watermelon and dried cockatrice meat. Seeing this, others also wanted to purchase food. Assuming Himuro Kayuji was a merchant, he clarified that he was an adventurer and didn't have an abundance of supplies. After noticing the nearby cooking utensils, he glanced at his ingredients and asked if he could borrow a pot. The old man hesitated, feeling guilty about letting Himuro Kayuji prepare food for them. However, Himuro Kayuji assured him that he didn't mind, as he was planning to have a meal himself. Sui and Mu gathered firewood, while Jack handled the task of igniting it. Himuro Kayuji then asked Lily to chop the ingredients into bite-sized pieces. A man remarked that he had never seen the monster ingredients Himuro Kayuji had brought. Himuro Kayuji explained that they came from the Netsak and cheesed continents. He had dried them to preserve them as rations and recommended this method since it retained both flavor and nutrients. The others questioned why he wasn't using any seasonings, to which he replied that the ingredients already had enough flavor. Once the soup had simmered, the dried monster plant pot was finally ready. Lily could both see and smell how appetizing it was. The townspeople lined up as Himuro Kayuji served the soup. Each person received a bowl, and Lily observed that they ate as if they had been starving. Both she and Himuro Kayuji were taken aback. The old man apologized, explaining that everyone had reached their limits and was truly grateful for Himuro Kayuji's kindness. However, the heartfelt moment was interrupted by the sound of the old man's stomach growling. Himuro Kayuji handed him a bowl of soup, and the old man quickly regained his energy after tasting it. Unbeknownst to Himuro Kayuji, a group of men had been secretly watching them. Himuro Kayuji then asked the old man why it was so difficult for them to obtain food. The old man revealed that ever since the evil tree had been cut down, the Bennu had continued attacking them. Himuro Kayuji and Lily were stunned to learn that Had had also been under attack. Due to the Bennu's rampage, Hiro Zakuk decided to exterminate all monsters and launched a monster subjugation plan. Himuro Kayuji and Lily grew concerned, realizing that this would result in severe food shortages and suffering for Had citizens. They couldn't believe that a hero's actions would lead to hardship for his own people. As a result, Zakuk had gained the title of the Tyrant Hero. The old man also mentioned a faction that opposed Zakuk's rule. Himuro Kayuji had initially come to Had because it was the closest to Netsak, but now he understood that the continent was under the Tyrant Hero's control. Lily worried that they would encounter difficulties. Himuro Kayuji acknowledged they had no other choice. The old man then asked Himuro Kayuji if he wished to meet the hero. At that moment, Zakuk's soldiers arrived and confronted them. Seeing Jack, they assumed he was a monster and aimed their spears at him. Himuro Kayuji quickly stepped in, urging them to stop and clarifying that Jack was their ally. As they were questioned, the mysterious men from earlier took action. Lily handed Himuro Kayuji a document, and he formally introduced himself. Presenting a letter of introduction from Rostam, he stated that he had come to meet the hero. The guards asked about his purpose. Himuro Kayuji replied that he was here to request the jewel from the Tree of Life from Zakuk. Despite his confident words, he and his companions ended up in prison. A few hours earlier, an irritated Zakuk had rudely asked why they were there, claiming she was busy. One of her guards presented Rostam's letter, catching her off guard. Himuro Kayuji felt uneasy as she read through it. There was a moment where Zakuk's expression seemed slightly more receptive, and Himuro Kayuji wondered if he could negotiate with her. However, she suddenly tore the letter to shreds and ordered her men to arrest them. Now, sitting in their cell, Himuro Kayuji struggled to comprehend how they had ended up in this situation. Lily speculated that since Zakuk despised monsters, she likely saw Himuro Kayuji, a monster cultivator, as an enemy. Himuro Kayuji felt that the introduction letter had been completely useless. Jack reminded him that they owed their survival to Rostam since they hadn't been executed immediately. He speculated that they might be released after Zakuk finished dealing with her affairs. However, Himuro Kayuji feared that instead of release, they could face exile. Lily admitted that collecting the jewels from the Trees of Life would be more difficult than expected. Just then, Mu sneezed. Himuro Kayuji apologized for getting her locked up so soon after she had taken human form. Mu reassured him that she didn't mind, as she wanted to stay by his side no matter what. Himuro Kayuji was touched and realized that he needed to keep his spirits up. At that moment, Lily heard noises coming from above. She asked everyone to keep it down since something was happening upstairs. Then, she noticed the ceiling starting to crack and quickly warned everyone to move toward the nearest wall. The floor suddenly gave way, covering them in dust. A girl dressed in bold clothing suddenly appeared, seemingly searching for Himuro Kayuji. She extended her hand toward him, saying she had come to assist him. Himuro Kayuji was puzzled, wondering why a stranger was trying to save him. The soldiers soon spotted the hole, and the girl had no choice but to lift Himuro Kayuji in a princess carry. Blushing, he watched as she leaped high through the opening. She urged the others to follow. Lily stated that they had no other choice. Soon, everyone managed to escape from the prison and found themselves standing atop a tower. The girl then suggested they should free fall from there. Himuro Kayuji immediately protested, saying they would die from that height. However, she countered that if they stayed, their fate would be just as bad. Lily pointed out that there was no other way but to run. Without much choice, they all jumped from the tower. As they fell, Himuro Kayuji panicked upon spotting someone right below them. He worried about crashing into the passerby, but to his surprise, the person used wind magic to slow their descent, allowing them to land safely. The mysterious figure expressed relief that they were unhurt. However, before they could say more, spears suddenly rained down as soldiers began their pursuit. The hooded individual urged them to flee immediately. Before long, they arrived at a cliff overlooking the illuminated city. The hooded figure commented that they had already put some distance between themselves and their pursuers. Removing his hood, he introduced himself as Ansul, Yisu's older brother. Both Himuro Kyoji and Lily were taken aback by the revelation. Ansul chuckled, expressing gratitude for taking care of his little sister. He had wanted to meet them at least once, and was pleased they had crossed paths. Apart from being a monster cultivator, Himuro Kyoji had gained renown for besting the sage hero in a cooking contest and assisting the emperor hero against a mysterious monster. Ansul mentioned that stories about Himuro Kyoji were now spreading worldwide. Lily then inquired whether he was also a witch, given that Yisu was one. Ansul confirmed it, which made Lily feel somewhat uneasy. Sensing this, Ansul reassured her that he was not their enemy and that he genuinely wished to aid them. Himuro Kyoji remained confused, but Ansul promised to explain everything once they reached their base, as Zakuk's forces might still be after them. Himuro Kyoji thanked Ansul for saving them, but clarified that they had their own mission on the continent. Ansul replied that he was willing to help with that as well, but first requested that they listen to his story. He reminded Himuro Kyoji that they owed him for the rescue. With no real alternative, Himuro Kyoji reluctantly agreed to follow Ansul to his base. However, Ansul emphasized that he was not forcing them and assured their safety. He then introduced the girl as Ruby, someone who had ended up working alongside him. Ansul described Ruby as an emotionless type and told Himuro Kyoji not to worry, as she was gradually warming up to him. As they followed Ansul, Lily appeared troubled by something. Himuro Kyoji then asked why even male witches were still called witches. Ansul explained that within their clan, women were dominant when it came to manifesting magical abilities. However, there were rare cases, like himself, where a male could also develop powers. He clarified that their abilities were more like unique talents they were born with rather than something learned. Yisu, for example, had the power to communicate with monsters and possessed an immense amount of mana. He admitted that, compared to Yisu, his abilities were far less impressive. Meanwhile, Lily continued to glare at Ansul, as if doubting something about him. Before long, they finally arrived at a village that also served as Ansul's base of operations. Ansul announced that the renowned monster cultivator had arrived. The villagers gathered around, prompting Himuro Kyoji to ask what was going on. Ansul then requested Himuro Kyoji to use his abilities to provide food, as the people were suffering from extreme resource shortages due to the actions of the tyrant hero. The villagers immediately supported the request, pleading for Himuro Kyoji's assistance. Ansul earnestly asked for his help, even if only a little. Himuro Kyoji then questioned why Ansul was so invested in aiding these people. Ansul explained that during his travels, he had encountered them and felt frustrated that he couldn't do more. Since Himuro Kyoji was a well-known monster cultivator, Ansul hoped he could solve the problem. After considering the situation, Himuro Kyoji agreed to help, which delighted the villagers. Himuro Kyoji then turned to Lily and asked if she was fine with getting sidetracked, even though their main objective was to obtain the jewel from the Tree of Life. Lily responded that she saw no issue with it and supported his decision. Himuro Kyoji then stated that before he planted any seeds, he wanted to experiment with short-term cultivation first. Ideally, he sought a seed that could sprout within a day. Observing that Hod's soil was similar to that of Cheesed, he recalled how they had used the mud ball method in Netsak and believed they could apply the same technique here. Wanting to act swiftly, Himuro Kyoji also expressed his desire to meet Zakuk again. Lily asked him why. Himuro Kyoji explained that, at first, he cultivated monsters purely to survive and secure food. However, through his experiences, he had come to understand that monsters were more than just enemies, they could be allies or even family. Since both Kasarina and Rostam had recognized this, he held out hope that Zakuk might also change her perspective. Lily smiled warmly and remarked that his words sounded just like him. She then offered to assist with the cultivation. Himuro Kyoji began contemplating the next step in preparing the mud balls. At that moment, Lily suddenly felt something rubbing her back. She blushed, assuming it was Himuro Kyoji's hand, though she believed she wasn't his type. The sensation then moved to her thighs, and when she could no longer tolerate it, she grabbed the hand only to realize it wasn't Himuro Kyoji's at all. Instead, it was a set of strange tentacles emerging from her bag. Himuro Kyoji was confused as to why Lily suddenly called out to him. Upon closer inspection, the tentacles were actually from Dorage. Somehow, Dora felt bad about her daughter's pranks. Amidst the tentacles, they discovered a letter. Dorage had left parts of her legs in their luggage so they could regain their strength and remember her. Himuro Kyoji decided to share the tentacles with the villagers, as they were highly nutritious. Then, an idea struck him. Ansul approached and asked what they had found. Himuro Kyoji explained that it was Mandorage, a hybrid between a mandragora and a desert jellyfish. Ansul was fascinated. Himuro Kyoji then realized that if they could extract Dorage's essence from the tentacles and use it on the seeds before planting, it might enhance their growth. Lily agreed since Mandorage was known for its high nutritional value. Himuro Kyoji then asked for everyone's assistance. He chopped the tentacles into smaller pieces and squeezed out their essence. The seeds were then soaked in the extracted essence before being placed into mud balls. Himuro Kyoji proceeded to plant them in the fields while Ansul and several villagers observed. Everyone watched in awe as the ground trembled when Himuro Kyoji activated his powers. The plants sprouted instantly, leaving the villagers amazed. Himuro Kyoji stated they could begin harvesting by the next day. Seeing how astonished the villagers were, Lily believed this would resolve their food shortage. Himuro Kyoji planned to check on the crops the next day before they departed. Lily then admitted she felt uneasy around Ansul. Himuro Kyoji wondered if it was because he was a witch. She remained silent, making Himuro Kyoji curious about her past. Lily then revealed that a long time ago, the Sealing Witch had destroyed her homeland. Due to the trauma, her memories of that event were blurry. Himuro Kyoryuji advised her not to force herself to remember. Lily then realized she was still affected by the past. They recalled writing a letter to Yisu to inform her that they had met her brother. However, someone hidden behind a tree was secretly eavesdropping on their conversation. Meanwhile, Ruby was observing soldiers as they raided homes filled with monster plants. The villagers protested, saying they depended on these plants for food. Despite their objections, the soldiers forcefully took the plants and set them on fire. Zakuk watched the flames burn. Behind her, the people continued to protest, accusing her of driving them toward starvation. Zakuk arrogantly stated that she could do as she pleased in her own country and suggested they leave if they disliked it. The villagers called her unfit to rule and said her actions were unforgivable. Enraged, Zakuk called them ungrateful fools. She then asked her soldiers about Himuro Kyoryuji's whereabouts. A soldier reported that a scout had located him. Upon receiving the news, Zakuk decided to go to the hidden village herself. Meanwhile, encheesed, Yazu checked on Dori as usual and invited her for a walk. They strolled through Himuro Kyoryuji's field, which was full of monster plants. Machai then arrived carrying a letter. Hoping that everyone in Hod was doing well, Yisu opened it. As she read, her hands trembled upon discovering that Himuro Kyoryuji and the others had met her brother. She quickly turned to Fidus and asked for a favor, leaving Dori in her care. She then used magic to prepare for teleportation and bid farewell. Suddenly, Machai jumped into the magic circle, intending to join her. Surprised, Yisu asked if Machai really wanted to come along. Seeing his determined expression, she warned him not to stray from her side, as she would be casting multiple teleportation spells to reach Hod. Not long after, the two arrived in the Hod continent. However, something felt off, as they couldn't spot any monsters in the area. Machai began wriggling, and soon they heard noises nearby. They peeked through the bushes and saw a familiar field filled with killer plants and cockatrices. At the same time, Himuro Kyoryuji and Lily were pleased to see a successful harvest, knowing their job was complete. Just as Himuro Kyoryuji was about to visit Ansul, they heard rustling in the bushes. Machai suddenly burst out crying and clung to Himuro Kyoryuji. Confused, Himuro Kyoryuji tried to process what was happening. Moments later, Yazu appeared, looking exhausted and unsteady. She mentioned that she had come to see her brother before collapsing. Afterward, Yizu ate to regain her strength and apologized for suddenly showing up. She explained that she couldn't sit still after reading Himuro Kyoryuji's letter. Lily then asked how Yizu managed to travel so fast. Yizu explained that she had used teleportation magic, but it could only transport her and something small like Machai. Additionally, she couldn't cover long distances in one go and had to cast the spell repeatedly. She then inquired about their current situation. Himuro Kyoryuji admitted that they had been imprisoned for some time by the tyrant hero, who despised monsters and was hunting them down. Yisu then understood why she hadn't encountered any monsters on her way. Himuro Kyoryuji reassured her that Ansel had saved them, as he had been searching for them. Yizu suddenly looked uneasy and stood up. She said she needed to see her brother immediately. Surprisingly, Ansel showed up and stared at Yisu with a blank expression. At last, the siblings came face to face. They moved outside, and Yisu asked if he was truly her brother. She wanted to know why Ansel never told her he was alive. Ansel's conflicted expression made Yisu suspicious. She then questioned whether he was planning something against Himuro Kyoryuji and the others. Meanwhile, Himuro Kyoryuji and Lily were concerned, as the siblings' reunion did not seem heartwarming. Suddenly, Mu screamed upon seeing Machai, and Himuro Kyoryuji introduced them to each other. Even Ruby, who rarely showed emotions, found Machai adorable. She reached out to touch him and agreed that he was cute, though she personally thought Almarage was even cuter. Mu curiously asked what an Almarage was. Seeing them get along, Himuro Kyoryuji felt relieved. Afterward, he and Lily stepped outside in search of Yisu. However, Lily quickly sensed something and pulled Himuro Kyoryuji into cover. Explosions erupted and echoed throughout the village. Fortunately, Himuro Kyoryuji and Lily were unharmed, but the noise drew everyone's attention. The villagers started screaming in panic, exclaiming that Zakuk's army had arrived. Himuro Kyoryuji and Lily became alarmed, wondering why Zakuk had come to the hidden village. They quickly regrouped and fled. As they ran, they called out for Ansel and Yisu until Ansel finally appeared. He assured them that they were fine and insisted they leave immediately. While escaping, Ansel discreetly signaled Ruby. Yisu, however, looked worried for some reason. Before long, the group reached the outskirts of the village, hoping to escape. However, Zakuk was already there, waiting for them. She couldn't believe they had been hiding in such an isolated place. Smirking, she expressed her delight in finally tracking them down. Her soldiers swiftly surrounded Himuro Kyoryuji and the others. With a sinister expression, Zakuk declared that she wouldn't let them escape again. Himuro Kyoryuji and his companions were now trapped. Unbeknownst to Zakuk, people had already begun referring to her as the tyrant hero. She had fought countless battles against powerful monsters and always emerged victorious. Under her command, all monsters on the continent were to be eradicated, even those that served as food sources. Her soldiers located and confiscated hidden food supplies derived from monster plants, ensuring that none remained. When people protested, claiming they couldn't survive without them, they were punished for speaking out, and their homes were burned to ashes. One day, an enraged child threw a rock at Zakuk. Despite the desperate pleas of the villagers, she ordered the entire village to be set ablaze. Now, in the present, Himuro Kyoryuji and the others found themselves encircled by Zakuk and her army. Lily demanded to know Zakuk's intentions. Zakuk claimed she held no personal grudge against them but referred to them as mere pawns. Confused, Lily asked what she meant. Laughing, Zakuk called for someone to step forward and explain. She introduced the Sealing Witch. Everyone, especially Lily, was stunned. Zakuk then speculated about what the Sealing Witch would do next. At that moment, Ansel removed his gloves, revealing himself as the Sealing Witch. He swiftly opened a portal and pulled Himuro Kyuuji inside. Yisu screamed at her brother, questioning his actions. Zakuk attempted to stop them with teleportation magic, but she was a moment too late. Everyone remained frozen as Ansel vanished along with Himuro Kyuuji through the portal. Zakuk had attempted to strike Ansel, but he was too late, and the two disappeared from sight. Lily shivered in disbelief. Zakuk then focused on Yisu, questioning if she was a witch. She had clearly overheard Yisu referring to Ansel as her brother. Lily demanded answers, asking where her brother had gone. A blade was pressed against Yisu's neck, and Lily urged her to speak if she knew anything. Yisu explained that the teleportation magic her brother used could send multiple people to a set location, and they could track the magical traces left behind. Lily struggled to believe that Ansel had been after Himuro Kyuuji from the start. Zakuk ordered Yisu to guide them. Lily objected, worried about Yisu being taken. As the adults argued loudly, Sui and Mu grew uneasy. Suddenly, Mu realized she could assist. The entire area glowed brightly as Mu reverted to her monster form. The ground erupted, and Mu soared into the sky with everyone on her back. Lily felt relieved that Mu had come to their rescue. She then checked on Yisu's state. Yisu felt heartbroken knowing her brother had become the Sealing Witch. Lily noticed Ruby was missing and assumed she had gone with them. A bad feeling crept in, but she found it hard to believe they had abducted Himuro Kyuuji. However, she started to doubt if that person was truly her brother. Sui and the others were also disheartened by Himuro Kyuuji's disappearance. Lily encouraged them to stay strong since Zakuk was also pursuing Ansel. They needed to move fast to save Himuro Kyuuji. She relied on Mu to carry them on their journey. Now that she knew Ansel had destroyed her homeland, she wondered what his intentions were for Himuro Kyuuji. Meanwhile, Ansel and Ruby observed the burning village from afar. He sighed, troubled by the unexpected turn of events, and told Ruby to head to a designated place immediately. Himuro Kyuuji was conscious but unable to move freely. Ruby acknowledged the order and transformed into a massive, monstrous bird. Himuro Kyuuji was shocked to realize that Ruby had been the Bennu all along. As Lily rushed to rescue Himuro Kyuuji, she wished for his safety. A week later, Himuro Kyuuji was enjoying a peaceful moment with Sui and Mu. Lily expressed relief that he had returned safely after the kidnapping. Himuro Kyuuji smiled, confident that they would come for him. Lily agreed, pointing out that they were partners, so it was only natural. Despite everything that had happened, Lily was grateful that everyone was unharmed. Himuro Kyuuji nodded, clearly relieved. A week earlier, Ansel had ordered Himuro Kyuuji to cultivate a monster using a combination of seeds, similar to what he had done with Dorage. Himuro Kyuuji swiftly grew a towering tree, but grew uneasy, suspecting Ansel planned to use it to build an army against the heroes. As the massive tree obstructed nearby plant growth, Himuro Kyuuji's concern deepened. Ruby then commented on Himuro Kyuuji's sympathy for the monster that had devastated Netzach. He remembered seeing Ruby cry and questioned why she was aiding Ansel. Ruby explained that her will was overridden by a magical seal that controlled monsters, leaving her powerless to resist. Himuro Kyuuji realized that Ansel had the ability to control monsters through a sealing spell, one strong enough to command even an SS-ranked creature at will. Suddenly, the seal glowed, indicating that Ansel was summoning Ruby. She urged Himuro Kyuuji to take this opportunity to escape. As he tried to speak, Ruby silenced him and assigned him the task of delivering the monster that would hatch from the egg to Zakuk. Ruby then transformed and took off. Himuro Kyuuji wondered how long she would continue following Ansel's orders. Ruby reassured him, believing that he would eventually find a way to help her. With a powerful beat of her wings, she ascended into the sky, radiating light as bright as the sun. Lily and the others noticed the fiery glow and speculated about its source. Seeing the light, Ansel realized Ruby had betrayed him. Zakuk and her soldiers identified it as Bennu. Some of her men warned that it might be a trap, but Zakuk dismissed their concerns and ordered them to advance toward the light. As the soldiers marched, Jack became nervous. Lily reminded everyone that they needed to find Himuro Kyuuji before Zakuk did. Yisu apologized, admitting she wanted to pursue her brother alone. Lily worried about her safety, but Yisu insisted that if too many people approached, her brother would flee. She asked the others to look after Himuro Kyuuji while she went ahead, leaving Lily and Machai uneasy. Suddenly, Lily spotted smoke in the distance. She urged Mu to fly, and together, they bypassed the soldiers until they located Himuro Kyuuji. They rushed toward him, finding him laughing after barely escaping a dangerous fire. Lily noticed something unusual and inquired about the child beside him. Himuro Kyuuji explained that the child was the secret weapon Ruby had entrusted to him, and he had to deliver the child to Zakuk. Lily grasped the plan and mentioned that Yisu had gone ahead alone to search for Ansel. She was sure Zakuk would also show up there. Without hesitation, they hurried to find Yisu. Meanwhile, Yisu confronted her brother, demanding to know what he was doing. Ansel claimed she wouldn't understand. He reminded her of how their village was destroyed by heroes, despite them living peacefully. They were slaughtered just for being witches. Now, all Ansel wanted was vengeance. Yisu protested, saying he still had her, his sister. In response, Ansel activated his magical seal and launched an attack to silence her. A fireball shot toward Yisu, making Machai panic as he had followed her. Trembling from the pain, Yisu asked why her brother was doing this. Ansel laughed maniacally, and Yisu realized that he was no longer the brother she once knew. In the area where the flames had died down, Zakuk and her soldiers could no longer see anyone. Suddenly, Zakuk spotted distant fire and recognized it as Bennu's. She immediately rushed toward it alone. Meanwhile, Yisu was struggling against both her brother and Ruby. Machai, worried, spoke words of encouragement. Yasu acknowledged that the person in front of her was no longer her brother. Ansel smirked, amused that the former crybaby had changed. Yasu reminisced about her past with him and declared she was no longer that weak person. She unleashed a powerful ice spell, but Ruby countered. An explosion erupted, throwing Machai aside. Himuro Kyuji and Lily saw the battle unfolding, and Mu flew toward them. Ruby was struck by a massive icicle and sent crashing down, reverting to her human form. Ansel sneered, calling her useless and not even worth using as a shield. He then brandished a knife and threatened Yasu, claiming her thirst for revenge was just right. Just as Yasu thought she was finished, Machai intervened, entangling Ansel with his threads. Yasu commanded Machai to bind him, leaving Ansel unable to move. At that moment, Zakuk appeared, ready to kill him, but Machai reacted swiftly, ensnaring her as well. Zakuk acknowledged that Machai's thread was infused with high-purity mana and wasn't easily severed. Himuro Kyuji and the others arrived just in time. Yasu ran toward Lily, tears streaming down her face. Lily reassured her, praising her strength. Himuro Kyuji commended Machai for defeating both a hero and a witch. Yasu grew curious about the unfamiliar person among them. Zakuk fixed a sharp glare at the newcomer and was stunned to realize it was Azidahaka, whom she had believed to be dead by her own hands. Ansel questioned how Himuro Kyuji had obtained the seed to grow Azidahaka. Himuro Kyuji remained silent, prompting Ansel to blame Ruby for ruining his plans. As per Ruby's request, Himuro Kyuji cultivated the seed and delivered the monster to Zakuk. However, Zakuk was puzzled because the tyrant hero recognized the creature and spoke of previously slaying him. Azidahaka then reassured Zakuk that she no longer needed to suffer, as he had come to rescue her. When Zakuk's father, the hero and emperor of the Hod continent, passed away, she felt burdened by the responsibility of taking his place. She often escaped the suffocating atmosphere by running outside. During one of these escapes, she met Azidahaka, and the two enjoyed each other's company. However, everything changed when Azidahaka suddenly transformed into a dragon and attacked her. Left behind by Azidahaka, Zakuk later encountered Ansel, who revealed that the creature was actually Azidahaka, an SS-ranked monster assigned to guard the world tree of the Hod continent against corruption. However, when the tree was cut down under Zakuk's father's orders, Azidahaka sought vengeance. Left with no other option, Zakuk had to slay Azidahaka to protect the capital. Despite her efforts, she underestimated a monster's cunning nature. The moment she killed Azidahaka, the seal engraved on him unexpectedly transferred to her, shocking even Ansel, who hadn't realized the seal could shift between individuals. He theorized that Zakuk's intense hatred might have drawn it to her. Initially, Ansel had planned to use Azidahaka to bring destruction to the country, but now he saw Zakuk as the better option. Confused, Zakuk demanded answers, but Ansel only smirked, hinting that he was eager to see what would happen next. Back in the present, Zakuk glared at Azidahaka in anger. Azidahaka, however, expressed gratitude to Zakuk for killing him before. Now, he offered his assistance and proceeded to absorb the seal from her. Zakuk trembled as she watched Azidahaka pull out a knife, apologizing for hurting her. Without any warning, Azidahaka suddenly stabbed himself and collapsed. Himuro Kyuji immediately rushed over to help and apologized for wasting time raising him. He explained that it was the only way to destroy the seal. Lily then asked Ansel if there was any other method to remove the seal. Ansel stated that what Azidahaka did was the sole solution. Frustrated, Lily slapped him. Himuro Kyuji then turned to Jack and asked if he had any Mandorage legs. Zakuk, after being freed, rushed to Azidahaka's side. Azidahaka expressed his joy that Zakuk was the one who ventured into the forest. He recalled how, when he was born, the world tree had already been cut down, making him feel useless and without purpose. However, meeting Zakuk had given him a new reason to live. As his arms fell limp, it became clear that Azidahaka had died. Zakuk cried out in desperation, pleading for him not to leave her. Her tears dripped onto Azidahaka's horns, and to everyone's shock including Ansel's, the seal unexpectedly lifted. With the seal finally broken, Azidahaka opened his eyes once more. The two embraced, overcome with relief and happiness. Yasu then theorized that the horn on Azidahaka's forehead was most likely a unicorn's horn. Unicorn horns were famous for their powerful healing properties, capable of curing both poisons and curses completely. Himuro Kyuji pondered whether Ruby had foreseen this when she asked him to nurture Azidahaka's seed. As everyone rejoiced, Ansel suddenly reconnected with Ruby, who still bore his seal. Knowing that she couldn't resist his orders, he activated his power as Bennu. Before anyone could react, Ruby unleashed a powerful flame attack. The force sent them all flying, breaking Ansel's restraints in the process. Sui was the first to regain consciousness and saw that Himuro Kyuji was still unconscious. Everyone else remained knocked out, except for Ansel and Ruby. Ansel then ordered Ruby to eliminate them all. Ruby conjured flames to burn them, but Mu intercepted her. In her Bahamut form, Mu absorbed the full impact of the attack. She reverted to her human form and urged Sui to run away. However, before they could escape, Ruby launched another fire attack. Sui cried out and quickly formed a barrier to block the flames. The attack rebounded, striking Ruby and sending her crashing to the ground. Sui approached Ruby, leaving Lily puzzled as she raised her arms. Ansel was in disbelief as he realized the seal on his hand was being removed. At that moment, Yasu woke up and called out to her brother. Confused, Ansel questioned why Yasu was there. Before anything else could happen, Ruby's flames intensified, causing a powerful burst that sent Sui flying. As a result, the seal returned to Ansel. Wasting no time, he activated his teleportation magic and vanished through a portal. Yasu was left shaken, struggling to comprehend what had just happened to her brother. Meanwhile, Himuro Kayuji sorrowfully watched as Ruby transformed into a jewel. He recalled Ruby telling him that only he could break the chains binding her. Determined, he vowed to revive her one day and asked her to rest for now. Not long after, Imperial soldiers arrived to help extinguish the flames in the forest. Zakuk then formally expressed her gratitude to Himuro Kayuji for assisting in the battle and saving Azidahaka. As a token of appreciation, she promised to give him the World Tree Seed. Himuro Kayuji thanked her sincerely. Zakuk, feeling remorseful about everything, vowed to stay strong and seek redemption alongside Azidahaka. Suddenly, Sui and Mu started complaining about how hungry they were after exhausting their magic power. Himuro Kayuji decided to cook a meal for them. Azidahaka and Zakuk joined in, helping prepare the ingredients. Lily noticed that Himuro Kayuji was making a dish he had previously prepared with Mina. However, instead of using killer wolf meat, he substituted it with cicatrice meat. Additionally, he came up with a new dish, roasted cicatrice wrapped in machai's threads. Once the meal was ready, Himuro Kayuji served the food to everyone, and they all enjoyed it. With peace finally restored in the hot continent, the group could finally relax. Excitedly, Jack asked which continent they would head to next. Vern and Dora were equally eager. Just as they were about to take off on Mu's back, Sui suddenly turned red. A faint sound caught Himuro Kayuji's attention, and he turned to see Sui collapse behind him. A doctor examined her and diagnosed her with extreme fatigue and stress. She advised Sui to rest for 2 to 3 days and prescribed some medicine. Seeing Sui in pain, Lily assumed they would need to delay their journey home. Himuro Kayuji looked at the unconscious Sui before turning to the others and declaring that they would return home. His decision confused everyone. Riding on Mu's back, the group set off on their way. Himuro Kayuji silently wished for Sui to sleep a little longer. Lily, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up, recalling how Sui had attacked Ruby to prevent her from harming everyone else. She wondered if Sui's actions had taken a toll on her. Additionally, she remembered that very few world trees remained, and Sui might be feeling the immense burden of developing her abilities as the future Demon King. Himuro Kayuji agreed and simply hoped that Sui could get some proper rest once they reached home. He was also looking forward to tasting Mina's cooking again. Lily excitedly declared that she wanted to as well. Himuro Kayuji reassured Sui that they would be back home soon. Later, upon arriving at the cheesed continent, Himuro Kayuji and the others were stunned to find numerous monsters wandering around their fields. Both Himuro Kayuji and Lily felt emotional, nearly tearing up, as it had been a long time since they last saw their home. The monsters gathered around them, and Himuro Kayuji wondered how they had been managing. It was clear that the monsters had grown significantly. Just then, Mina suddenly appeared before them. Himuro Kayuji questioned why she was in his field. Mina explained that after Yisu left to follow Himuro Kayuji and the others, Phytis declared that she would train to become a woman worthy of Himuro Kayuji and went on a journey to improve her cooking skills. Mina had stepped in as a substitute to look after the fields. Himuro Kayuji was grateful to Mina and relieved to hear that Phytis was doing well. Mina then noticed Sui lying unconscious, and Himuro Kayuji explained that she had collapsed from exhaustion. They went inside, and Himuro Kayuji wondered if Mina could prepare something for Sui. Knowing she was an accomplished cooking champion, Mina agreed, making both Himuro Kayuji and Lily happy. The three of them headed to Mina's restaurant, where Himuro Kayuji handed over the prescribed medicine for Sui. They decided to mix it into the meal without altering its effects. Dora even offered some of her petals, which had healing abilities. Mina chose to make porridge for Sui. She simmered wheat in plenty of water and allowed it to cook thoroughly. Himuro Kayuji assisted in the cooking process and recalled memories of the cooking competition. They combined cicatrice egg with sweet milk, poured it into a pan, and added the medicine. To complete the dish, they sprinkled Dora's petals, and the porridge was ready. Himuro Kayuji then approached Sui and carefully fed her the food that Mina had prepared. Fortunately, despite her unconscious state, Sui was able to swallow it. However, even though Mina continued to make different dishes, Sui still showed no signs of recovery. Mu grew increasingly worried about her master remaining unresponsive. Himuro Kayuji was also concerned that there had been no change in the past few days, wondering if it was solely due to overwork. Lily suspected that Sui's condition might be linked to her role as the Demon King. Himuro Kayuji's anxiety deepened. He thought about how helpful Kasrina would be if she were there. Lily agreed, noting that Kasrina was a heroic sage. She then decided to find Kasrina and bring her to Sui, planning to pick up some Doraj's legs along the way. A few days later, Lily returned with Kasrina. Himuro Kayuji immediately asked for her assistance. Lily also presented some of the Doraj's legs and Cyclops innards she had collected. She mentioned that defeating the creatures had been difficult, though Kasrina remarked that Lily had actually handled them quite easily. Afterward, Kasrina examined Sui upon learning that she had collapsed on the Hod continent. Since medicine and healing magic had no effect, Kasrina suspected that an external factor was causing Sui's condition. Although she wasn't entirely sure what was happening, she vowed to do everything in her power to help. She suggested making a simplified version of the thick soup that Himuro Kayuji had once prepared for Lean. Everyone gathered in the kitchen as Kasrina and Himuro Kayuji began cooking. They gathered a variety of ingredients: mandrake legs, devil carrots, cyclops innards, and several other components. Kasrina even included some stem of a dead man's tree, a fragment of an immortality tree, a spoonful of halma, and a bit of silphium to enhance the flavor. Himuro Kayuji and Lily exchanged worried glances, but Kasrina reassured them that the mixture would help replenish Sui's depleted magic power. She explained that both humans and monsters could consume it safely. Jack, however, was doubtful about its effectiveness since Sui was a demon king. Kasrina then asked Jack to taste the mixture. Jack took a sip and admitted that the taste wasn't too bad. Suddenly, Himuro Kyoyuji and Lily panicked as jack-o'-lantern branches and fruits sprouted from Jack's head. Kasarina took this as a sign that the mixture was working. Confident in its effects, Himuro Kyoyuji carefully fed the soup to Sui, but there was no reaction. Himuro Kyoyuji anxiously asked Sui what was wrong. When he stepped outside, he informed the others that it hadn't worked. Lily was distressed, as not even Dorage's essence seemed to have any effect. Kasarina then concluded that food alone was no longer a viable solution, and they needed to consider their next course of action. She pointed out that there were still many creatures in the world with healing or medicinal properties they could try. Lily knew it was her turn to take action. She prepared to embark on another journey, gripping her sword, while Himuro Kyoyuji apologized for making her leave again. Lily reassured him that she didn't mind, as it was all for Sui's sake. She also reviewed the list of beasts provided by Kasarina and realized they were relatively easy to track down. Himuro Kyoyuji also placed his trust in Yisu, who would be accompanying Lily. With that, the two set off on their hunt. Kasarina then stated that she would determine the best dishes to prepare using the new ingredients, and Himuro Kyoyuji relied on her judgment. He then returned to Sui's side. After some time, he overheard voices speaking to Kasarina. Kasarina explained that they had brought reference books for her. She also suggested consulting the goddess, but Himuro Kyoyuji mentioned that he had yet to receive any response. Kasarina assumed that the goddess intended for them to resolve the problem on their own. However, if Sui were to die, there would be no successor for the Demon King, and with the remaining world trees at risk of being destroyed, the world itself could collapse. They were already on the brink of disaster, and Kasarina wondered if the goddess was deliberately testing them. Himuro Kyoyuji then realized how little time they had left before the world faced destruction if things went wrong. However, what pained him the most was seeing Sui burdened by the weight of the world's fate. She was not a bad child, and Himuro Kyoyuji was determined to cure her. Suddenly, a powerful gust of wind burst through the window, startling everyone in the room. Himuro Kyoyuji was momentarily speechless before something clicked in his mind. He recalled everything the goddess had told him about the world trees and their jewels. Without hesitation, Himuro Kyoyuji quickly donned his farming gear and rushed to his fields. He reminded himself of the purpose behind all the journeys he had undertaken. It was the only thing he could do. While Kasarina and the others continued to care for Sui, and Lily and Yisu searched for more ingredients, Himuro Kyoyuji resumed farming once again. Later, Himuro Kyoyuji completed his work. At the same time, Lily and Yisu returned from their hunt, bringing with them a variety of monster jewels and seeds. Lily reported that they had successfully gathered everything on the list. Kasarina was delighted, as she could now prepare excellent dishes using the new ingredients. She then announced that they would begin cooking right away and asked Himuro Kyoyuji to fetch some devil carrots and killer plants. Himuro Kyoyuji quickly harvested the requested ingredients, and upon returning indoors, he was pleased to see everyone working together with the same goal in mind. With these newly acquired components, he was hopeful that they could finally wake Sui up. Kasarina then noted that since Sui was still unable to eat solid food, they would need to prepare something drinkable instead. She crushed some Jacko-melons while Himuro Kyoyuji grated the devil carrots. The carrots were needed to enhance the drink's taste for Sui. She also added honey to provide extra nutrients. After mixing everything together, they adjusted the flavor. In the end, they created a smoothie. Himuro Kyoyuji then headed to Sui's room, where Mu reported that there had been no changes in her condition. They helped Sui sit up so she could drink the smoothie they had prepared. Sui took a sip and managed to swallow it with ease. Himuro Kyoyuji noticed her staring at the smoothie and asked if she wanted more. Moments later, Himuro Kyoyuji was shouting Kasarina's name as he ran into the kitchen, crying, announcing that Sui had finished the entire smoothie. The girls were delighted by the good news. Kasarina noted that this was a promising start and suggested preparing jelly using killer plants next. They sliced the killer plant fruits and boiled them along with chia seeds, sugar, and water. While waiting for the jelly to set, they cut monster meat to serve alongside it. To complete the dessert, they placed small cubes of monster meat on top of the chilled killer plant jelly. Kasarina mentioned that it would be easier for Sui to eat something she was familiar with, and Himuro Kyoyuji agreed. Kasarina then instructed Lily to smoke the Cerberus meat while Himuro Kyoyuji brought another meal to Sui. Yizu assisted with the smoking process, and once again, Himuro Kyoyuji fed Sui. The girls set up the smoking area for the meat. Jack appeared to help with the fire, but he overdid it, causing the smoking area to explode. The Cerberus meat ended up burnt, but they found a way to salvage it. Not long after, Sui started eating on her own again and regained her ability to speak. Himuro Kyoyuji and the others were overjoyed upon hearing Sui's voice. She smiled at them, and Kasarina felt relieved to see her making a full recovery. Lily also noted that Sui's complexion had improved significantly. Kasarina then suggested using the nutritious smoked Cerberus meat that Lily had prepared for their next dish. The meat was low in fat yet packed with juicy, aromatic flavors. She instructed Lily to retrieve the smoked meat while she and Himuro Kyoyuji prepared the other ingredients. Himuro Kyoyuji eagerly looked forward to the rich aroma of the cooking meat. Meanwhile, Lily was tasked with whipping the egg whites until they became light and fluffy. Taking a deep breath, Lily whisked the eggs swiftly until stiff peaks formed. Kasarina inspected the mixture and was amazed by its perfect texture, calling it the best meringue she had ever seen. She then combined it with egg yolks and butter, instructing Lily to mix them well. They poured the mixture over barley and baked it, creating a fluffy cocatris amorous. The new dish was presented to Sui, who immediately enjoyed it. Himuro Kyoyuji watched as she finished every bite, feeling relieved that she ate it all. After a brief silence, Sui shyly asked for more food. Himuro Kyoyuji was delighted to see Sui returning to her usual self. Mu quickly ran to her master, letting out a whimper. From that moment on, Sui's appetite steadily improved, and she continued to regain her strength. Before long, she was able to go outside and play with the others again. She resumed riding Jack, just like in the past, and became more energetic while playing with Mu. Kasrina and Lily were pleased to see Sui fully recovered. Himuro Kyoji acknowledged everyone's support and sincerely thanked Kasrina for her help. Kasrina was happy to assist, saying it was a fulfilling experience that allowed her to experiment with new dishes and witness Himuro Kyoji continue his journey. While the adults chatted, Sui and the others played tag in the fields. However, in the midst of the cheerful game, Sui suddenly stopped running and stared blankly. The light in her eyes faded, and she weakly reached out toward the others. Then, without warning, her consciousness slipped away, and she collapsed with a soft thud. Dora and Mu, who had turned to see her fall, were immediately alarmed. Himuro Kyoji cried out Sui's name as he saw the young demon king lose consciousness once more. Dora's eyes filled with tears, and she desperately called for Sui to wake up. Her tears landed on Sui's lips. A heavy silence filled the air until the ground suddenly began to tremble violently. A powerful earthquake struck, shaking everything around them. Nearby, a towering pillar of light appeared, leaving everyone in shock. Himuro Kyoji immediately recognized the importance of the location. At the base of the glowing pillar, an explosion erupted, and Sui's body started radiating light before she slowly began floating upward. She was being drawn toward the pillar of light. The brightness spread across the entire continent, illuminating the surroundings. Himuro Kyoji and the others hurriedly chased after her, but their pursuit was abruptly interrupted as massive roots burst forth from the ground. Everyone was left stunned by the unexpected emergence of the tree roots. Himuro Kyoji suddenly realized something and turned his gaze toward Sui, who was still floating. He was astonished that what he had planted had actually sprouted. Before them stood the world tree, also called the Sephiroth, radiating a brilliant glow. Everyone stood frozen, mesmerized by the immense and luminous tree of life. At first, no one could find the words to speak. Lily admitted she did not know why she felt like crying when she looked at it. She was overwhelmed by the breathtaking sight before her. The other girls were equally amazed and praised Himuro Kyoji, but they also noticed that their home had been uprooted in the process. Lily then turned to Himuro Kyoji and asked if he had done something. Himuro Kyoji admitted that he had been thinking a lot after Sui fell into a coma. He believed that Sui was growing weaker because she was not receiving enough power from the world trees, so he came up with the idea to plant all 3 seeds, hoping it would help her wake up. Lily observed that the 3 trees had indeed intertwined with one another. Just then, Sui called out to Himuro Kyoji. Overcome with emotion, Himuro Kyoji hugged her tightly like a father, shedding tears of relief that she was better. Sui responded happily, and everyone else felt at ease knowing things had finally worked out. Kasrina could tell that this time, they had truly solved the problem. Himuro Kyoji apologized for making everyone worry, but Kasrina reassured him, saying she had witnessed something incredible. She vowed to ensure that the world trees would no longer shed tears, wanting to make amends for the trouble she had caused by cutting them down in the past. Himuro Kyoji and Lily cheered for Kasrina's determination. Lily also hoped that Yisu would be able to reconcile with her brother. With that, Yisu set out on a journey to find him, leaving together with Kasrina. Himuro Kyoji and Lily reassured them that they would always remain friends and would be there whenever they needed help. They waved goodbye, and soon, Himuro Kyoji and Lily were left alone, just as they had been in the beginning. The two of them headed to a nearby cliff for a serious conversation. Lily shared how seeing Sui's condition made her fear that the world was truly on the verge of ending. As they spoke, she began thinking about something she wanted to tell Himuro Kyoji. However, now that Sui had recovered, she decided to hold off on saying it for the time being. Himuro Kyoji grew curious, which caused Lily to blush. She then confessed that she had a wish. She admitted that when they first met, she thought Himuro Kyoji was strange, but she was truly grateful that they had crossed paths. Lily expressed her thanks to Himuro Kyoji for choosing her as his partner. Embarrassed, Himuro Kyoji admitted he felt the same way. Coming from another world, he was glad to have met Lily. He told her he planned to rely on her even more in the future, and Lily happily agreed. Not long after, Himuro Kyoji and the others said their goodbyes to Machai and Mina. Mina wished them well, and Himuro Kyoji asked her to take care of his fields and monsters. He also bid farewell to the monsters, including a small ruby among them. With Jack, Sui, Mu, and Vern, Himuro Kyoji and Lily embarked on a new journey together. Just as they were about to decide on their next destination, something unexpectedly appeared in front of them. The goddess finally made her grand entrance, surrounded by confetti and party poppers. Annoyed, Himuro Kyoji demanded to know what she was up to. The goddess, looking flustered, explained that it had been difficult for her to stay silent through everything. She had faith that Himuro Kyoji would take action. She then expressed her gratitude for saving both Sui and the world, reminding them to continue gathering and planting the remaining world tree seeds. With that, she said she looked forward to working with Himuro Kyoji again, and then vanished, leaving him deep in thought about what had just transpired. Lily pointed out that even the goddess had her own limitations. She believed the goddess had appeared simply to express her feelings to Himuro Kyoji. With a sigh, Himuro Kyoji acknowledged that the situation in Cheesed was now resolved. He then asked Mu for assistance. Mu transformed into her Bahamut form, and together, they set off on their next adventure. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you loved this manga. Have a good day.